Jiang Fan faces the stone giant king, who has regained his memories as an Asura. The tides of war across Central Earth are shifting with the arrival of the sages. Leave a like and subscribe to walk this path. Jiang Fan was able to accept this, and he slowly said, "No wonder you, a giant king, secretly sought out the shadow Black Snake and clandestinely requested the giant's holy object from Black Cloud Village. It turns out you've regained your memories as an Asura," recalling those days when Jiang Fan was captured by the five-star giant king. The most anxious was the stone giant king, fearing Jiang Fan would expose his deeds. Now it all makes sense. The stone giant king looked at Jiang Fan and laughed. "You remember how you ruined my plans?" The coldness gathered in Jiang Fan's eyes. In truth, he did not have a pleasant experience with this stone giant king. The stone giant king was the first giant king he encountered. Also the first giant king who hunted him down and nearly caused his demise. Now he is the one leading the giant group, the first to descend upon Taikang State. True Word Venerable and others began to understand. This traitor among the giants, in essence, is also a member of the Asura clan, can hardly be considered one of their own. Sensing their hostility, the stone giant king smiled faintly. "The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Killing me won't benefit you. Keeping me around, perhaps I can help you deal with a few giants." Coldness still swirled in Jiang Fan's eyes. The stone giant king shrugged. "I haven't harmed any person from Central Earth. When facing Heart Demon Venerable, I deliberately avoided the battlefield." Upon hearing this, Jiang Fan hesitated repeatedly before relinquishing his killing intent. He snorted lightly. "Letting you leave like this is too easy for you." The stone giant king shrugged. "Then shall I tell you what heavenly realm intelligence I've gathered? First, the giant emperor from the central tribe has issued an order to destroy the three realms for a colossal endeavor." Several divinity transformation venerables frowned slightly. What grand endeavor would require the destruction of three realms? Jiang Fan's gaze flickered. "Continue." "Such matters are beyond the concern of those in the divinity transformation realm. Second, the giant emperor has left the central tribe, and it's unknown which state he will descend upon." Their expressions changed slightly. The mysterious giant emperor has moved. Such an entity descending upon any state would mean ultimate destruction. Only the great wine sacrifice can counterbalance. Third, the stone giant king looked at several people and said meaningfully, "Your Taikang state harbors a traitor with remarkable connections. Find them quickly, lest the tragic events from 1,000 years ago repeat." Jiang Fan was taken aback. He had long felt today's battle was filled with eerie mysteries, as if humans were collaborating with giants. Now it was confirmed. "What are his traits?" Jiang Fan asked coldly. 1,000 years ago, even sages fell due to betrayal. This time it must not happen again. The stone giant king replied, "I have never met him personally, but he possesses vast energy." "What?" Jiang Fan and True Word Venerable were collectively shocked. True Word Venerable scolded him. "Stop spouting nonsense. A Confucian practitioner bearing vast energy must be upright and would never willingly become a traitor." Even Jiang Fan found it unbelievable. Only someone from Confucianism would possess vast energy. How could they be traitors? The stone giant king casually said, "Then just treat it as my ramblings." "All right, I've told you what I know. Can you let me leave now?" Jiang Fan took a deep breath and calmed the turmoil in his heart. Gazing at the stone giant king, he asked, "Where do you intend to go?" The stone giant king replied, "Perhaps back to the Black Sun royal court, continuing to hide my identity. Or maybe back to the tribe, helping them resist the giant attacks." Jiang Fan pondered for a moment, took out a pinch of powder that emitted a holy light. This was the saint crystal capable of reversing giantification. Before the battle, Jiang Fan crushed it, distributing the powder to everyone. "Take this, returning in this form, neither will the forgotten god Asura clan mistake you for a threat." He sealed the powder in a jade box and tossed it to the stone giant king. Whether he wanted to continue hiding or return, he was free to choose. The stone giant king was slightly stunned. Unexpectedly, Jiang Fan gave him the saint crystal. After a moment of hesitation, he caught it, looking complex. "No wonder Green Pearl Shura King was captured by you, calling you husband upon meeting. You have some likable qualities in certain aspects, kid." True Word Venerable's sharp gaze shot at Jiang Fan, laughing. "What woman can he not capture? Someday he calls a female saint his wife, don't be surprised. HMPH. Jiang Fan was quite embarrassed. Fuming, he glared at the stone giant king. "Give back the saint crystal, not playing anymore?" The stone giant king looked at True Word Venerable in astonishment. It was only then he realized the stunning venerable of heaven and human two declines before him was also Jiang Fan's woman. He showed a trace of awkwardness while also raising his thumb in admiration. Impressive, a wife in the heavens, a wife on earth, an exemplar of our generation. Under Jiang Fan's increasingly fiery gaze, he retreated shyly, folded his hands, and said, "Then I take my leave. Consider it that I owe you a huge favor." He then quickly ran to the connecting sky-black pillar, leapt up and climbed it. Before leaving, he looked back at Jiang Fan, saying, "I'm off. Take care, your war is far from over. The Black Sun Royal Court is only the weakest among the 9 divisions." With this, he swiftly departed along the connecting sky-black pillar. Jiang Fan and the others felt a heavy heart. Taikang State indeed won a great victory. But what about the other great states? The army of the Black Sun Royal Court had only one 2-star giant king. The other states were not necessarily the same. If the other great states cannot withstand and are occupied, the giants will eventually come to Taikang State. Either find a way to reopen the state-level teleportation array, or forcibly traverse the endless sea between great states. True Word Venerable said, "Let's first check the battle status of each state. In addition, we need to assess the battle damage in Taikang State." Upon hearing this, Jiang Fan took a deep breath, feeling suffocated. He felt reluctant to check the situation at Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion. The final battle was so fierce. The possibility of no casualties at Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion was almost zero. True Word Venerable realized Jiang Fan's emotions, rarely speaking softly. Life is a series of goodbyes. Accepting departure and respecting the curtain call are essential lessons in life. Gather your spirits. The road ahead is long, and there are many who need your companionship. Jiang Fan's emotions slightly calmed. He looked up towards the peak of the shattered light barrier, leaped and flew up. Through the mysterious ice, he patted Jiang Wuya's body, surveyed the ravaged mountains and rivers, and sighed. "Big brother, I've defended these mountains and rivers for you. Are you satisfied?" The only response was the sound of the wind. Jiang Fan laughed at himself, shouldered Jiang Wuya's body, and said, "Let's go. I'll find you a final resting place so you can forever watch over this land." He leaped and returned to the battlefield. True Word Venerable and others also gradually departed. None noticed. At the center of the Forbidden Land, the Misfortune Sage's hand, pressing down on the Misfortune God's steel, silently vibrated once. Jiang Fan returned. The various sects and troops that were pursuing the remnants of the ancient giants also successively returned. They carried the enormous heads and threw them onto the battlefield. The master of the 10,000 Tribulations' holy temple, covered in blood and with a shocking wound piercing his chest, appeared weak. Yet his eyes were unusually bright, and he said loudly, "Reporting to the Venerate, all remnants of the ancient giants have been exterminated." The Heart Demon Venerable nodded, looking at the tragic state of the Hall Master, at the miserable situation of the remaining Wanjai Temple disciples, at the numerous disciples' bodies scattered on the ground. The usually rough-edged man couldn't help but feel his eyes turn red and said with a tremor in his voice, "You all have worked hard." The Hall Master also spoke sorrowfully with tears rolling down, "Venerate, you have worked hard too." The Heart Demon Venerable mustered his courage and asked, "What are the casualties?" The Hall Master hesitated, and after a long pause said, "All 6-9 Aperture Nascent Soul Seniors heroically sacrificed themselves. Out of the 14 Atorifice Nascent Soul Seniors, only Song Lingyu, Zhou Wenyuan, and Huang Linju are severely injured and unconscious. Of the leaders of the 6 divisions, only 2 survived. Half of the remaining Nascent Soul disciples died." The shocking casualties caused the Heart Demon Venerable to painfully close his eyes. This battle had a too heavy cost. However, he quickly composed himself, opened his eyes, and firmly reassured the 10,000 Tribulations' holy temple disciples. "Don't be sad. Originally, we were headed for total destruction, and the fact that more than half of the disciples are still here is already a miracle. We won the war against the ancient giants." The disciples were uplifted, and some of the grief was reduced. Indeed, although the battle was fierce, the fact that more than half of the disciples survived is already a miracle among miracles. Before the battle, no one believed they could win against 8 giant kings and over 1,000 ancient giants with just 5 divinity transformation venerables and 500 late-stage nascent soul cultivators. It was the courageous sacrifice of every martyr that turned the tide in their favor. The situation in the Great Yin sect was similarly tragic. All 9 Aperture Nascent Soul cultivators perished, and few atorifious nascent soul cultivators remained. More than half of the remaining nascent soul cultivators were casualties. The Fire Worship Sect, the Myriad Phenomena Void Realm, the Heaven and Sea Pavilion, and other sects all suffered grievous losses. Out of over 70 medium and small sects, only about 40 remained. Of the original 100 sects, half were wiped out. The cold numbers represent the demise of one sect after another, cruel beyond measure. Jiang Fan arrived at the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion's group. His heart was in his throat as he scanned the crowd. Fairy Yun Shang, the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion Master, Liu Qingxian, Xia Ko, the Slave Heart Demon Emperor. The familiar faces he passed by gradually put his heart at ease. However, after surveying, he realized some were missing. Apart from the rebellious Guy and Little Tiger, there were 25 people from the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion participating in the battle. Now only 22 remained. His heart sank and he asked shakily, "Where are the other 3? Lin Yuheng said mournfully, "Ning Kun Master shielded me from the ancient giant's long tongue and was swallowed and eaten." Ning Kun, that stern and rigid old man, revered by all the disciples of the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion. Jiang Fan couldn't even remember the last time he spoke to him. He clenched his fists and asked, "Does he have any descendants on the continent?" Lin Yuheng replied with guilt, "He has a family and I will do my utmost to take care of his family members." Jiang Fan handed her a space storage device and said, "Add my contribution." Then with a heavy heart he asked, "Who else?" Yu Yunzi hesitated for a moment and said softly, "Yunyang Master." Thud. Jiang Fan's heart was struck hard. The master he had worshipped when he first entered the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, though it was only a short month and they hadn't interacted much. But her image, frequently with a book in hand, left a deep impression on him. She was gone too. "Is her body still there?" Jiang Fan choked out. Yu Yunzi said tearfully, "Yes, I plan to take her body back to the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion for burial." Jiang Fan's eyes reddened, voice trembling. "Who's the last one?" He didn't want to hear any more names. "Ah, count me in then." A helpless sigh came. Jiang Fan looked through misty eyes at a small soul-sized figure hovering in front of him, clutching the moon realm. It was Liang Feiyan. He scratched his head and said, "While avoiding the giant's attack, I got run over and crushed by a guy with a battle chariot." Poof, Jiang Fan couldn't help but laugh through his tears. The originally sad atmosphere turned surprisingly humorous due to Liang Feiyan's unfortunate accident. Liang Feiyan blushed with embarrassment. "Stop laughing." "Ren Guheng, you are laughing when the bird that got smashed by a wolf fang club recovered." Struggling to suppress his laughter, Ren Guheng stiffened, his face turning red, wishing he could crawl into a hole. Liang Feiyan, this rascal, had to drag him down the mud. No way he couldn't be the only one mocked. He looked around, targeting the carefree, laughing rebellious guy, and sneered. "What are you laughing at? Have you cleaned your peed-in cloth?" The rebellious guy immediately looked at his cloth, damp and slightly yellow. During the decisive battle, it almost got trampled to death and was scared to wet its pants. It blushed furiously, covering its face with green scales. "Ha ha ha, there's even someone who peed their pants. It's hilarious." Gu Zinner laughed, holding her belly, tears almost coming out. The rebellious guy felt both furious and ashamed, demanding, "Is it that funny? Huh? You, a woman who can't tell front from back." Gu Zinner immediately stopped smiling, a chill on her face. "Say that again. What do you mean by can't tell front from back?" The rebellious guy huffed. "I didn't say it. It was some ancient giant muttering in hell's language about how your head grew on your back." Poof, ha ha ha. Everyone couldn't hold back and burst into laughter. Gu Zinner's face was flushed, jumping in frustration. "Which bastard giant said that? Take me to him. I'll chop up his corpse to feed dogs, feed dogs." Jiang Fan at least said she was a handful. This damned giant did his ancestors lose their sight, saying her front is the same as the back. Outrageous. With this incident, Jiang Fan was able to regain his composure. Compared to other sects, where either half of the disciples were lost or the sect was entirely destroyed, the relatively low casualties of the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion were already a miracle. This was thanks to everyone having received the heavenly clothes, divine water, and anti-void spirit pill from Jiang Fan, effectively giving them 2 lives in battle. Moreover, Jiang Fan's fame from attacking the heavenly realm twice and entering Heavenly Heritage City for Taikang State earned him the respect of the world. As a result, on the battlefield, members of other sects especially took care of the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion disciples. The best example is the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion Master. During the initial assault on the Stone Battle Group, when the Pavilion Master was on the brink of death, An elder from the great Yin sect sacrificed himself to save him, and he perished as a result. Others, more or less, received their protection both openly and secretly. This was the blessing Jiang Fan accumulated for all at the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion. Thinking of this, he gestured his gratitude silently in the direction of all the sects by bowing. At this moment, the sky shimmered with radiant gleam. 9 projections appeared again. The battle conditions in each state were simultaneously displayed across the central Earth 9 provinces. Every state's forces could see the battle conditions of the others. Everyone looked over curiously at the situation in the other states. In theory, the Taikang state is the state with the lowest fortune among the 9 states and the weakest strength. They have achieved great victory, so the other states shouldn't be far behind. However, upon seeing the conditions of each state, everyone's faces turned exceptionally grave. Because, apart from the Demon Continent and Hunyuan state, which could match the fight against the ancient giants, all the other states were showing an overwhelmingly one-sided defeat. Great Wilderness State. The death of the Wuyu Venerable took away a 3-star Giant King, but in response to them came a 5-star Giant King, along with 20 more arriving Giant Kings. The army of ancient giants leading them had reached 2,000. In contrast, the Great Wilderness State, apart from the fallen Wuyu Venerable in the Divinity Transformation realm, had only 10 Venerables. After a fierce battle, the result was predictable. Of the 10 Venerables of the Great Wilderness State, only the Red Dust Venerable and 2 others were left struggling on the brink of survival. The army of over 1,000 nascent soul middle-late stage cultivators was reduced to only 200 or 300 people. Among the ancient giants, only 3 Giant Kings had fallen. The giant army had bizarrely increased from 2,000 to 2,100. Not only did they not decrease in number, but they actually increased. The Red Dust Venerable looked around at the dense, black mass of surrounding ancient giant army with a bitter expression. She had anticipated that this battle would be hopeless, but had not expected it to be so utterly despairing. The sacrifice of the Wuyu Venerable only brought a fleeting moment of hope to the Great Wilderness State, which was then mercilessly crushed by the ancient giant army. They not only far surpassed in numbers and combat power, but also possessed an almost cheating level of killing device. And that is the blood pool. The ancient giants had brought the blood pool, capable of transforming individuals into ancient giants, down to the lower realm. Anyone captured, whether in the divinity transformation realm or the nascent soul realm, was thrown into the blood pool. They paid a heavy price to slay a giant king, only for a companion to be captured and transformed into a giant king. After painstakingly killing a section of ancient giants, swarms of nascent soul realm individuals were captured and thrown into the blood pool. As the battle raged on, the number of ancient giants only grew. How can one even fight against this, at this moment? The 5-star Giant King came forward holding the blood pool, speaking indifferently, "Join the blood pool and become one of my giants. This is the favor I grant to the strong of the Great Wilderness State." Between the lines, only those in the nascent soul middle-late stage were eligible to become giants. All other beings were not qualified. They were only fit to become food. The Red Dust Venerable tightly clenched her blood-stained silver teeth, hesitating on the spot. She was not tempted by the idea of being transformed into a giant. She was weighing whether to lead the remaining army for a final desperate attack, or to commit suicide before the blood pool to avoid being captured and turned into a giant that would slaughter her own people. If she chose the desperate attack and they were captured, they would become allies of the giants. But if she took her own life on the battlefield, it would only further benefit the ancient giants. Amidst the inner struggle, a slightly drunken voice suddenly echoed across the sky. It was the great wine sacrifice of the Great Wilderness State. Aside from a bit of drunken slur, the voice was unusually powerful, filled with an inspiring strength. Battle report. Taikang State has obtained a great victory. Taikang State has obtained a great victory. Taikang State has obtained a great victory. The same words, repeated 3 times, resounded powerfully over the battlefield. The demon cultivators were stunned, full of disbelief. How could the Taikang State possibly win? Wasn't that the weakest state? They barely even have a few divinity transformation venerables. The Red Dust Venerable exclaimed in disbelief. How can this be? She couldn't rack her brains enough to figure out how Taikang State managed to win. Until the projection of the battlegrounds of the 9 states was displayed. While the other great states were engaged in fierce battles, Taikang State stood alone, smoke billowing. The remaining army of the Taikang state, led by Jiang Fan, gathered on a battlefield littered with numerous ancient giant corpses, watching them. The red dust venerable's eyes widened. Taikang state truly won? That's right. Jiang Fan destroyed the blood pool of the Black Sun Royal Court and cleared their Wolf Fang Club and still managed to move the connecting sky-black pillar to that forbidden land of misfortune. Taikang state indeed has a slim hope of turning the tide. No wonder Jiang Fan, if I could be pressed by him just once, I would die without regrets today. The venerate next to her rolled his eyes. Wake up, Taikang state succeeded, which means they can come to our aid. The red dust venerable suddenly snapped back to reality. Yes, indeed. If one state triumphs, they can aid another, and the great wilderness state currently faces the most severe plight. Most likely they would come to aid them. This means they still have a glimmer of hope. She swept away her deathly resolve and sharply cried, "Everyone hold on tight for me. Your reinforcements are about to come to aid us." The remaining 200-plus nascent soul middle-late stage demon cultivators instantly regained their spirit. Be strong, be strong, be strong. Strong, stronger, stronger, stronger. The demon cultivators rekindled their fighting spirit, brimming with killing intent. On the other hand, the giants appeared somewhat panicked. They were full of disbelief as they watched the battle reports from Taikang State. Although the Black Sun Royal Court was the weakest tribe, Taikang State was also supposed to be the weakest. To annihilate Central Earth, the entire giant force was mobilized this time, ensuring that the strength of each tribe was double that of Central Earth's great states. How did the Black Sun Royal Court lose? Moreover, they were utterly defeated, being completely wiped out in Taikang State. The eyes of the five-star giant king flashed with a sharp light, coldly scanning the remaining demon cultivators. He coldly ordered, "Kill them all, proceed to Taikang, and avenge the Black Sun Royal Court." How could he allow Taikang State the chance to support others? Upon the command, the dense tide-like ancient giants surged forward. The red dust venerable was not surprised. How could Taikang State have enough time to rescue them besieged from all sides? She rallied everyone to endure, just to exert some pressure on the giants, so they wouldn't entertain the thought of capturing and converting them. Jiang Fan, go support other states. Central Earth is counting on you all. She led the demon cultivators forward, eyes filled with killing intent, charging towards the giants. Just like the final fight at Taikang State, where the sects charged like moths to the flame. However, a blue-robed 30-year-old woman, draped in palace attire, mysteriously appeared between the two armies. Her face was flushed with drunkenness, a wine gourd slung over her shoulder, unsteady on her feet, staggering. She looked on the verge of toppling over at any moment. "Great wine sacrifice! Why are you here?" the red dust venerable exclaimed in surprise. The great wine sacrifice, facing away from the great wilderness state's demon cultivators, grabbed the wine gourd and took a deep gulp. Then she wiped her mouth with her sleeve and slurred drunkenly. "Since Taikang State has won with new hope in sight, it is time for us, the great wine sacrifice, to make our move for you." The red dust venerable cried out in shock. "No, great wine sacrifice, if you act, the 9-day giant emperor will lock onto you, repeating the misfortune of the misfortune sage from the past." The great wine sacrifice reluctantly glanced at the wine gourd in her hand, then casually tossed it aside. Looking skyward, she laughed. "So many have sacrificed, it's time for us, the great wine sacrifice, to take action. Central Earth could go without us, but cannot go without you all." She smiled as she walked forward, waving her hand without turning back. "Hold on, victory will come." The words were spoken. A golden monument appeared behind her. Inscribed with countless runes, it radiated unparalleled power of merit. Profound fluctuations of law circled the monument, affecting the order of the world around it. The five-star giant king's vertical eye trembled as he retreated with the blood pool, speaking in a deep voice. "The monument of merit, the symbol of the sage of Central Earth. Great wine sacrifice, have you forgotten how the misfortune sage fell?" The intoxication in the great wine sacrifice's eyes vanished, her face cold. "I know, so what? I have guarded the great wilderness state for 1,000 years, waiting precisely for this moment." As her words fell, she lifted her index finger and the terrifying power of laws burst forth from the monument of merit. "Endless," the great wine sacrifice mumbled softly. The erupting laws swept in all directions, enveloping all life aside from the demon cultivator. 17 giant kings, 2,100 ancient giants. All were swept by the laws. A 3-star giant king, his vertical eye gradually filled with frenzied greed. The great wilderness state is mine alone, no one can take it from me. No one? Poof. Without warning, he twisted the neck of the giant king beside him, tearing off the head along with it. Then another giant king went mad, attacking those around him. And then the third, the fourth, the fifth. The giant kings quickly slaughtered each other, each greedily trying to eliminate the others and take the great wilderness state for themselves. The ancient giants were even more deeply mired in the laws, unable to extricate themselves. The 2,100 giants also went insane, beginning to slaughter each other. Only the 5-star giant king, although influenced by the laws and overwhelmed by endless greed, still retained a trace of reason. He decisively produced a piece of black bone. Enshrouded in a terrifying black mist, it contained the curse power of the giant emperor. With the curse power, he barely stayed clear-minded, watching the already chaotic army and the great wine sacrifice staring at him. His soul fled wildly, decisively escaping towards the connecting sky-black pillar. Where he passed, space was trampled into dense void rifts. The great wine sacrifice waved her sleeve, and a drop of wine instantly moved over. Poof! The 5-star giant king didn't even have time to react before his forehead was pierced with a bloody hole. Soon after, countless cracks spread from his forehead to his whole body. Like a massive porcelain statue 30 meters tall. With a bang, it shattered into countless pieces. A pitch-black soul, frantically clutching 5 stars, flew towards the heavenly realm, with the ability of the giant king to be reborn from a drop of blood. After rebirth, the 5-star giant king could directly be restored to the 4-star giant king's strength. Still a colossal hidden danger. The great wine sacrifice's eyes were icy cold. She waved her sleeve again. But at this moment, the sky above the great wilderness state cracked open. A pitch-black void rift, as tall as the skies, appeared out of nowhere. The rift was so vast that it scattered the strong winds at the peak of Xianxia. A terrifying existence had torn apart the barriers between central Earth and the heavenly realm. From the depths of the void, a flash of blood light appeared. The next moment it pierced through the realms, directly heading for the great wine sacrifice. Its speed was so fast that it completely ignored space. Just like when the great wine sacrifice used a drop of wine to kill the 5-star giant king, giving the opponent no chance to respond. The great wine sacrifice only had time to let out a soft sigh. The blood light arrived. Yet, with a stark snap, a long tree root emerged bizarrely from beneath the great wine sacrifice, precisely entangling the blood light. The blood light paused for a moment, revealing its form. It was a blood-colored spear, identical to the spear that killed the misfortune sage. And the one who caught the blood-colored spear was none other than the 1,000-year-old ginkgo tree. However, it couldn't hold the blood-colored spear, merely wrapping it. In the next moment, the unmatched divine power emitted by the blood-colored spear shredded the tree root to pieces, destroying its underground body as well. Fortunately, the momentary pause of the blood-colored spear gave the great wine sacrifice a chance to react. She vanished from the spot in an instant. The next moment, the blood-colored spear pierced into the ground. Boom! In a cataclysmic explosion, the blood-colored spear tore open a void black hole with a diameter of 10,000 feet. Endless yin-chi surged out from the black hole. The spear's remaining power even pierced the world barriers between Central Earth and the Hell Realm. The resulting destructive shockwave erased all ground within 1,000 miles, revealing the colorful world barriers. The sky for 10,000 miles was marked with countless void rifts. All humans and giants on the battlefield were blasted 10,000 miles away, their lives uncertain. Those blown away were the lucky ones. For the giants and humans closest were shattered into a bloody mist, leaving no trace of their bodies. As the shockwave subsided, the previous battlefield held no trace of Central Earth's form. Only colorful world barriers, a sky full of void rifts, and a deep, bottomless black hole reaching the Hell Realm. This was the cross-realm attack of the 9-day giant emperor. The only 2 beings left on the scene were the great wine sacrifice and the 1,000-year-old ginkgo tree. As for the soul of the 5-day giant king, it had been completely obliterated along with the connecting sky-black pillar. The great wine sacrifice shielded the ginkgo tree, her blue palace dress in tatters, face pale, blood of the sage dripping from the corners of her mouth. The 10-person embracing ginkgo tree was in a pitiful state. Beneath its trunk, nothing remained. All had been destroyed while wrapping the blood-colored spear by divine power. Only a section of the tree crown was left, with Wudang Venerable's remains wrapped in its leaves. The great wine sacrifice turned back with a wry smile. "Why did you do it?" the ginkgo tree said. "If the master were alive, he would have done the same. Besides, I am a 1,000-year divine wood. As long as one branch remains, I can regrow. But I can only help you this far." The great wine sacrifice bowed. "Thank you. Take care, I am going." She glanced at the closing sky rift, angrily raising her palm and cutting open the rift again, directly rushing out of central Earth into the heavenly realm. After preparing for 1,000 years, how could the great wine sacrifices have no means to handle the 9-day giant emperor? The 1,000-year-old ginkgo tree shook its crown, shedding damaged golden leaves. It looked towards the projection of Taikang's state among the 9 projections, remotely speaking. "Brother Jiang, I am leaving. Take care." The words ended. Carrying the remains of the Wudong Venerable, it soared through the void rift in the sky, leaving central Earth. Taikang's state, all were in shock. The terrifying power of the blood-colored spear deeply shook them. At the same time, it dispelled the greatest doubt in everyone's heart, including Jiang Fan's, why the great wine sacrifice never acted. Even if on the brink of annihilation, they remained still, because they only had one chance to act. Once they acted, they would be targeted by the 9-day giant emperor. Thus, the great wine sacrifice had to save the opportunity for the most crucial moment. Yet, until Taikang State's great victory, the great wine sacrifice never acted. Did he hesitate for some reason? At this moment, the situation on various states' battlefronts has once again undergone drastic changes. The great victory in Taikang State seemed to have set off a major battle across the whole of Central Earth, since the great wine sacrifice from Great Wilderness State made their move. The great wine sacrifices of Dan State, Divine Weapon State, Returning Ruin State, and Holy Spirit State successively took action. The sages personally arrived, stabilizing the universe. In the 4 great battlefields, most of the ancient giants were slain, directly changing the tides of battle. And the blood-colored spear also arrived unexpectedly. The destruction it caused was akin to that in Great Wilderness State. Fortunately, the 4 great wine sacrifices were well prepared, each showcasing astonishing methods, dodging this attack. Subsequently, they charged through the rift into the heavenly realm. Jiang Fan noticed that only the laughing great wine sacrifice from Demon Continent and the crying tomb great wine sacrifice from Hunyuan State were missing. But from the remaining devastation on the ground, it seems likely that they were targeted by the 9-day giant emperor at the very start of the battle. The reason is quite simple. Both the great wine sacrifices of Demon Continent and Hunyuan State had made their move before. Previously, when the interlayer world of Demon Continent opened, Demon Continent faced an extinction crisis from the Hell creatures. The laughing great wine sacrifice had to intervene. And the great wine sacrifice of Hunyuan State, when Wu Gu wanted to kill Jiang Fan with remnants, had no choice but to eradicate Wu Gu. It was their interventions that led them to be targeted early. Thus, when the battle started, they directly faced the attack from the 9-day giant emperor. Jiang Fan looked worried, especially for crying tomb great wine sacrifice. At the time, he thought the intervention was just a casual strike, and he was only briefly grateful. Unexpectedly, crying tomb great wine sacrifice expended such a valuable strike, originally capable of pulverizing countless giants like Great Wilderness State. But to save him, only one remnant soul of Wu Gu was killed. A deep sense of guilt enveloped him. He quickly looked towards Hunyuan State's battle. Without the assistance of a great wine sacrifice, Hunyuan State was mired in intense combat. The existence of the blood pool further made Hunyuan State tread the same path as Great Wilderness State. The more they fought, the more the enemies seemed to multiply. As for Demon Continent, the situation is slightly better because the blood pool's conversion of the demon race wasn't as successful as with the human clan, not achieving 100% conversion success. This led to the blood pool's effect being significantly weakened. Currently, both sides are evenly matched, therefore it is clear where Taikang State should offer its assistance. Hunyuan State, everyone recover quickly. A new battle is about to begin. The great wine sacrifice twirled the horsetail whisk, gazing intensely at the situation in various states with furrowed brows. Jiang Fan saw the great wine sacrifice frown for the first time. His heart sank slightly. Has the great wine sacrifice discovered something dire? No matter what, they must quickly adjust their status. He consumed so many anti-void spirit pills and heavenly clothes divine water that he had nothing to adjust. The people from Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion mostly ran out of spirit pills. Jiang Fan shared the little spirit pills he had left with them. Then, he requisitioned materials for anti-void spirit pills and heavenly clothes, divine water from all sects, including Xianxia Mountain, and started alchemy on site. After the baptism of the giant battles, the various sects were unusually united. They all handed over all their materials to Jiang Fan for alchemy. Even the Bodhisattva came forward with many materials, saying, "This battle thanks to Master Jiang." Jiang Fan processed the materials, glanced sideways at him, noticed the sand giant king behind him, and couldn't help worrying. "He won't be at risk of breaking free, will he?" The Bodhisattva smiled and replied, "That's due to my second vow transcendence. My vows come from Central Earth Ancient Saint. As long as the Ancient Saint remains undefeated, if I die, the vow will still exist." Jiang Fan pondered. "Is the second vow limited in its application?" The Bodhisattva did not hide anything. "Can be used once every 3 years. No wonder. If it could be used indefinitely, this battle wouldn't be so difficult." Remembering the Bodhisattva's prior intent to use the second vow on him, he shivered. Lucky that there was interference from the 2-star giant king and the divinity transformation realm of young Emperor Mountain. Otherwise, he might have been forcibly transcended by him. This Bodhisattva truly is unfathomable. Thinking about it, Jiang Fan became curious. "What is your third vow?" "The second vow is already so extraordinary. Wouldn't the third vow be even more formidable?" The Bodhisattva smiled lightly. "You will know if you have the fate." Jiang Fan rolled his eyes. "Go away, don't disturb my alchemy." The Bodhisattva smiled silently and departed, while he was refining pills. On the continent, a graceful figure flew towards Taikang State riding a cloud. Her appearance was exceptionally beautiful, with a gentle and graceful demeanor, her dress fluttering like a celestial being. It was none other than Su Yoren, whom all the women of the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion feared. She hurriedly rode the white cloud, eyes full of worry. "Wait for me, Fan." Above Kingly Mountain, a young man with a sinister face crossed arms in front of his chest, silently gazing towards the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion. Behind him, a vague, ethereal human figure lingered. He was none other than the young master from Heavenly Heritage City, sent to rescue Princess Zaijiang and assassinate Jiang Fan. He had traversed several state-level teleportation arrays and finally landed unnoticed in Taikang State. Now all that was left was to find Jiang Fan and kill him in one strike. "Jiang Fan, your death is imminent." He retrieved a bone from his chest, engraved with 5 illusory human-shaped patterns. It was clearly the Dharma image of the Heavenly Heritage City Lord. Killing a heavenly human 5 declines might be difficult, but anything below that was within reach. Eyeing the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, his eyes lit up with a fierce gleam, ready to advance. Suddenly, he sensed something in the nearby space. As the spatial fluctuations flickered, a fist-sized soul plummeted out, pale-faced. This person was none other than Evil Crow Venerable. The Black Lotus of Tribulation only drained his flesh, sparing his soul, allowing him to escape with his life. He took a deep breath, filled with a smile. "Hehe, the heavens never seal off all paths. I thought I'd be banished to the void indefinitely, but who knew Jiang Fan's item would be so useful?" He treasured the jade box held in his embrace. Inside, there was a piece of torn cloth. He used this cloth to press a breach into the world barrier, enabling him to return to Taikang State. Jiang Fan, I'm going to take everything from you." He scanned the surroundings, and upon discovering that this was Kingly Mountain, his face twisted with malice. "Haha, it's destiny that brings me near your stronghold. Unfortunately, I lack a suitable corpse for possession. Otherwise, I would possess one now and annihilate your sect." The only body suitable for possession by his soul was one from the divinity transformation realm. But Taikang State had so few in the divinity transformation realm, where could he find one? Suddenly, Evil Crow Venerable sensed something, quickly turning to one side. Upon noticing the young master from Heavenly Heritage City, he was taken aback. "Dharma Image Realm? Are you from Heavenly Heritage City?" Realizing this was Jiang Fan's territory, and Jiang Fan had massacred Heavenly Heritage City before. He immediately understood the other's intent, to exact revenge on Jiang Fan. At this thought, he couldn't help but laugh. Jiang Fan, you've sinned too much. Everyone wants to wipe out your sect." Following the principle that an enemy's enemy is a friend, he smiled. "I am Evil Crow Venerable with deep-seated enmity with Jiang Fan. I assume you are also here for revenge against Jiang Fan? Why don't we join forces?" The young master smiled, eyes narrowed into slits, staring at the jade box in Evil Crow Venerable's hands, greed gleaming from his eyes. "All right, however, I'm lacking some items, could you spare them?" Venerable, he was insidious by nature, how could he not sense the young city lord's greed? He secretly felt anger in his heart. Damn giant remnant eyeing my possessions! But he dared not show his emotions. Because he was just a soul, if he angered the opponent, he would likely be unable to escape their pursuit. His gaze shifted, and a cruel gleam flashed in his eyes. "Oh, interested in my treasure, are you? Then let me show you its power. Just in time, I also need a fresh corpse for possession." The Evil Crow Venerable was delighted as he eyed the powerful body of the young city lord. What a case of having a pillow delivered when sleepy. This is it. Feigning reluctance, he hesitated and said, "Fellow Taoist, are you interested in my treasure?" The young city lord's eyes sparkled with mockery. "What, are you unwilling?" He secretly clenched his fist, wary of the Evil Crow Venerable escaping into the void. With his keen eyesight, he could see the extraordinary nature of the tattered cloth. Since such a valuable treasure was encountered, how could he not take it? It didn't matter whether the Evil Crow Venerable willingly handed it over, because he would leave no hidden threats. The Evil Crow Venerable sensed the other's intention to silence him, feigned ignorance, and hesitated. "I, a mere remnant soul, carrying this treasure is like a 3-year-old holding a gold brick and wandering about. Even if you don't want it, others will. I might as well be generous and offer it to you, fellow Taoist. Just asking that you spare me, considering we're both enemies of Jiang Fan." The young city lord smiled. "Of course. As long as you offer it, sparing your life is a given." With no doubts left, the Evil Crow Venerable threw the jade box over from a distance. The young city lord cautiously caught it from afar, ensuring there were no traps before feeling secure holding it. Squinting, he examined the tattered cloth, asking, "Where did this item come from? What's its purpose?" The Evil Crow Venerable honestly replied, "It was taken from Jiang Fan. As for its effect, it is used like this." His words were cut short as a cruel light flashed in the Evil Crow Venerable's eyes, suddenly triggering a thought. The jade box abruptly exploded. The tattered cloth, wrapped in a strand of the Evil Crow Venerable's soul, fiercely struck the young city lord's chest. The young city lord realized it was a trap, promptly swung his right fist in an attempt to blast away the approaching cloth piece. But upon contact, he felt an unbelievably terrifying force. Despite his body refinement physique, he couldn't resist even a bit. His hand shattered in an instant. Then the cloth pressed against his chest, piercing right through. The young city lord was in disbelief that he had been outwitted by a piece of tattered cloth. He tried to heal the injury, but the Evil Crow Venerable wouldn't give him the chance. Once more, he maneuvered the cloth back for another strike. Poof, this time it shattered half of his body, and the Evil Crow Venerable showed no sign of stopping. If the pressure continued, his soul would be extinguished as well. In this life-threatening moment, he gritted his teeth, spiritedly dashed out of his body, burrowing rapidly into the void, releasing a venomous roar. "Evil Crow Venerable, this young city lord will remember you." A complete Dharma image realm expert was actually outwitted to death by a mere soul. It was truly a great humiliation. The Evil Crow Venerable's face was stern. This brat was pretty decisive. He intended to destroy him completely, but hadn't expected his soul to escape. This could pose a hidden threat, but there was no time to worry about that now. Gazing at the remaining half of the fresh body, he decisively dove in. "Ha ha ha, I'm back." Though incomplete, a half-giant inherits half the bloodline of an ancient giant, possessing powerful regenerative abilities. Before long, it can recover completely. At this point, he reached into his bosom, feeling a sensation. A black bone engraved with 5 small figures was drawn out. "Ha ha ha, it's actually a strike from the 5 phases realm. Heaven hasn't forsaken me, heaven hasn't forsaken me." The Evil Crow Venerable was ecstatic. Not only did he succeed in possession, but he also resecured a major killing treasure. "Even though I lost all my cultivation after possession, the body's strength of a Dharma image realm remains. Coupled with a strike from the 5 phases realm, what does Jiang Fan have to fight me? Unless he breaks through to the divinity transformation realm and uses that domineering domain again." With this thought, he carried the broken body away quickly. To contend with Jiang Fan, he needed to be in peak condition. Not long after his departure, a half-dark, half-human soul of the young city lord emerged from the void. His face was full of hatred. "You undying thing!" Failing to kill Jiang Fan, he lost his body and magical treasure instead. But he had no time to dwell on this. The urgent matter was to quickly find a suitable body. The soul of a half-giant wasn't an ordinary Central Earth soul. They couldn't remain in soul form for long. Visibly, his darkened soul was turning into wisps of black smoke, disappearing into the void. If he didn't find a body in time, his fate was predictable. But where could he find a corpse in such a short time? In his current soul state, he couldn't even kill someone for possession. In his anxious search, suddenly on a cliff ahead hung a girl's corpse in a pink dress. She was very beautiful with flawless jade-like skin. A faint demonic aura lingered on her body. It seemed she had just died not long ago. The young city lord frowned and murmured, "Was that body there before?" He realized he had no impression of it at all. Maybe he hadn't been paying attention. Staring at the girl's body, he hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. With cultivation only at the 9th layer of core formation perfection, the body is too weak. And it's a woman. Such a body it's not worth possessing, just as he was about to leave. Two female figures from the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion approached cautiously. They were Xianxia and Qingzhu, who had stayed behind at the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion. Sensing the powerful fluctuations in this place, they came over promptly. Upon closer inspection, they realized it was the lingering aura of a divinity transformation realm expert, and they grew heavy-hearted. "Senior Sister Leng, there's been a divinity transformation battle here. We must return to the sect quickly to hide," Xianxia said solemnly. Qingzhu was also frightened and nodded promptly. But as they turned, they suddenly saw the corpse hanging on the cliff. She covered her mouth in shock. "Isn't that Demon Moon?" When Jiang Fan held Demon Moon captive, she and Jian Linyuan and others were present. Of course, they recognized this little priest of the demon race, Demon Moon. Xianxia was astonished. "Why is she here?" "Never mind, she's Jiang Fan's wife with whom he shares a heart connection worm bond. We must hurry and save her." Oh. A gleam of cunning flashed in the young city lord's eyes. This body was actually Jiang Fan's woman. Now bereft of a body and treasure, he couldn't kill Jiang Fan nor rescue Princess Zaijiang. If he could disguise himself as Jiang Fan's woman and strike from behind, wouldn't that? The young city lord hesitated several times, then gritted his teeth and said, "If I have to be a woman, so be it. As long as I can kill Jiang Fan, what harm is there in enduring humiliation?" He immediately seized the chance, while the two women weren't paying attention, and quickly entered the body. Qingzhu swiftly flew towards the cliff, suddenly pausing mid-flight, murmuring to herself, "I seem to remember someone saying Demon Moon is an obstacle to Jiang Fan's divinity transformation. If we save her, won't Jiang Fan just slay her with a sword?" After a moment's hesitation, she shook her head, saying, "No matter, let's leave it to Jiang Fan to handle." Fan turned all the materials he had obtained into 2 types of spirit pills. He kept 10 for himself and distributed all the rest. The amount of heavenly clothes, divine water was limited and not enough to treat everyone's injuries, so only the severely wounded were prioritized. Great wine sacrifice, how should their bodies be dealt with? At this moment, someone asked a question. Upon hearing the sound, Jiang Fan looked over and discovered that while he was practicing alchemy, the strong individuals from various sects had collected all the human clan remains from the battlefield. As for the sects that were still around, they had their own disciples take care of them. But the remains of the medium and small sects that were annihilated had no one to manage them. Jiang Fan walked over, face clouded with grief, and said, "Let me offer them blessings first." He took out the prison-suppressing soul scripture and recited its obscure and profound scriptures from memory. One by one, black Sanskrit characters flew out from the scripture book. From innumerable corpses, fragments of soul spots flew out, and under the guidance of the Sanskrit, they flew into Kangaming, entering an unknown realm. Once the last soul fragment disappeared, Jiang Fan closed the scripture. He pressed his palms together and silently chanted, "Thank you all for guarding Taikang's mountains and rivers with your lives. May you live without pain or disaster in your next life, peacefully forever." Finally, he looked at the countless remains and said, "Great wine sacrifice. Leave some people here to establish a mausoleum. They deserve the eternal tributes of posterity." Great Wine Sacrifice nodded slightly and said, "6 paths by Xin. Select some injured who can no longer fight from various sects to stay. Establish Taikang Mausoleum." 6 path masters and Bai Xin were also severely injured, but fortunately with the heavenly clothes' divine water's help, their injuries had recovered. The two cupped their hands and immediately began organizing personnel. Jiang Fan then looked up at the connecting sky-black pillar. After hesitating for a moment, he took out the Moon Realm. Before supporting Hunyuan State, he needed to confirm one last thing. That is, the battle situation between the Black Sun King and Red Sleeves. If Red Sleeves was not faring well and could not continue to delay him, then they needed to resolve the Black Sun King themselves. He immediately wrote on the Moon Realm, "Red Sleeves, how's the battle going?" If the battle between Red Sleeves and the Black Sun King was fierce, she should have no time to respond. Conversely, if Red Sleeves had slain the Black Sun King, she could quickly send a reply. Beep beep, the Moon Realm immediately showed a message. "Glasses, did your Taikang state win?" Unbelievable. Clever as Red Sleeves was, she immediately understood that since Jiang Fan had leisure to inquire about the Heavenly Realm situation, it must signify that the Taikang state's battle front had stabilized completely, perhaps even with a major victory. What, Red Sleeves replied so fast? Jiang Fan's heart raced, excitement spurting forth instinctively. Could it be that Red Sleeves killed the Black Sun King? But then he pondered. If Red Sleeves had succeeded in killing him, she would have already notified through the Moon Realm. "Take a good name. How are things between you and the Black Sun King?" He was somewhat puzzled. The Black Sun King had not descended, obviously delayed. If Red Sleeves hadn't killed him, she should still be engaged in fierce combat. Why was she so free to reply? He couldn't figure out the battle situation between the two. "Glasses, I haven't engaged him." Thud, Jiang Fan's heart suddenly stopped, his eyes widening gradually. He wrote incredulously, "Take a good name, you didn't keep the promise?" "Glasses, I'm at the Black Sun Royal Court, but the 5-star Giant King isn't here." What? Jiang Fan was horrified. The 5-star Giant King had not descended and wasn't delayed by Red Sleeves. Where is he? An immense ominous threat enveloped his heart, making him shiver. Such a terrifying being, left unchecked for so long. He quickly looked at the connecting sky-black pillar and decisively took out the sky observation treasure to investigate. Even with the detection range expanded to the limit, the connecting sky-black pillar showed no trace of the 5-star Giant King. Jiang Fan's expression showed anxiety. Could the Black Sun King have quietly descended onto the continent already? Where would he be? On the continent? At Kingly Mountain? Or has he gone to capture the Kinshin Bureau, taking over the state-level teleportation array? His mind was a chaotic mess, forcing himself to take several deep breaths to calm down. It shouldn't be. If the Black Sun King descended, would he watch idly as his Giant King and giants were annihilated without a care? Or is he wary of the great wine sacrifice and descended on Taikang State from an unknown place? But the only link between Taikang State and the Black Sun Royal Court is this connecting sky-black pillar. Thinking of this, Jiang Fan's expression suddenly froze. A huge question that had lingered in his mind for a long time resurfaced. That is, how did that 2-star Giant King, able to freely shrink and expand, descend into Taikang State? At that time, the connecting sky-black pillar was in Black Cloud Village. According to Heavenly Realm's rules, he couldn't enter, nor could he descend through the connecting sky-black pillar. Unless there was another connecting sky-black pillar linking to Taikang State. Realizing this, Jiang Fan's heart pounded fiercely, cold sweat trickling down his face. If that's true, doesn't it mean there's another place for giants to descend? There at any moment could, or already might have ancient giants descending. He dared not make a sound. Without another word, he took out Venerate Zinni's little black bottle. The remnant soul of the hell beast struggled painfully inside. Jiang Fan took hold of it and coldly said, "Answer me one question and I'll give you peace." The tormented hell beast craved death long ago. It glared venomously at Jiang Fan, voice hoarse. "Speak," Jiang Fan said coldly. "I want to know if you weren't released from the Tiger Demon Emperor Mansion. Would Taikang State have no connecting sky-black pillar?" At this moment, he realized he had overlooked a monumental issue. That is, the hell beast was originally imprisoned in the Tiger Demon Emperor Mansion. Only through the accidental intrusion by him, Fairy Yunshang, and Yan Daeon was the hell beast released. Then it unleashed the connecting sky-black pillar. But if they hadn't released the hell beast, would there be no connecting sky-black pillar? Looking over the millennial history, Taikang State's ancient giant descents consistently occurred as expected, except for one time when it did not happen. How did the ancient giants ensure their imprisoned hell beast in the lower realm could timely release the connecting sky-black pillar? Such as the present hell beast, it was once subdued. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible to unleash the connecting sky-black pillar. Heh. The hell beast laughed, throwing its head back in mocking laughter, wild and unrestrained. Jiang Fan said coldly, "You don't want to be tortured any longer, do you?" The hell beast ceased laughing, its face showing a mocking expression, speaking with playfulness. Who told you that Taikang State only has one hell beast? What? Jiang Fan's pupils vibrated fiercely. The whole time, everyone assumed there was only this one hell beast, but only now did he learn differently from the hell beast's mouth. This wasn't true. Doesn't this mean another hell beast can also release the connecting sky black pillar? And that two-star giant king that could shrink and expand freely, indicating a second connecting sky black pillar had been released long ago. States is the stepping stone that the ancient giants must capture. By occupying Taikang State, they can use it as a base to launch attacks on the other 8 states. Hence, in other states, hell beasts were only deployed in pairs, one visible, one hidden as a standby. But in Taikang State, a total of 3 hell beasts were deployed. After I was suppressed, the second one awakened. So both of us released the connecting sky black pillars in succession. Jiang Fan's heart sank heavily. Sure enough, there's a second connecting sky black pillar, he urgently said. Where is the second connecting sky black pillar? The hell beast chuckled. Even if you don't threaten me, I'll tell you. Because you now only realize it's already too late. I can sense something has already come down along the second connecting sky black pillar. It raised its claw and pointed to the east. The second connecting sky black pillar is in the far east. After pointing the way, it mockingly watched Jiang Fan, 2 connecting sky black pillars flanking from both sides. I can't fathom how you will win in Taikang State. Ha 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 ha. Laughing, the hell beast suddenly froze. It saw the ground full of corpses, those of the ancient giants including the giant king. It exclaimed in shock, "You exterminated the giants from one connecting sky black pillar. Impossible. Taikang State's forces, how could they possibly annihilate so many giants?" The countless ancient giant corpses made it incredulous and hard to accept. Jiang Fan actually won a battle. This hurt more than killing it. Jiang Fan, the giants of the second connecting sky black pillar, you can't possibly win, you can't possibly still. The words were still at its mouth. Jiang Fan's brow shot out a soul-shocking stab, completely extinguishing its remnant soul into soul-light spots, dispersing into the void. What's wrong, Jiang Fan? True Word Venerable noticed Jiang Fan's serious expression, flashed over. In memory, it's the first time seeing Jiang Fan with such a heavy expression. Back then, rescuing Xingyuan Venerable, facing 5-star Giant King and Wu Gu alone, was never like this. Jiang Fan felt as if something was blocking his throat, said, "There's a second connecting sky black pillar. Moreover, ancient giants have already arrived." What? True Word Venerable's beautiful eyes widened, stunned like wood. The news shook Heart Demon Venerable, Bodhisattva, and Jian Lanjiang, who also hurried over. All 3 were frozen in place, silent as wood. It's not that they didn't want to say something. It's that their minds were blank, unable to speak. For a long time, Bodhisattva clasped hands together, looked up at the sky, eyes revealing relief. This poor monk's calamity ultimately cannot be escaped. At the moment announcing Taikang State's great victory, he thought his fate of death was rewritten. Turns out, it was always there. Heart Demon Venerable inhaled deeply, then exhaled long, bitterly laughed. Trials and tribulations abound. The war belonging to Taikang State is not over yet. Jian Lanjiang was also dazed for a long time before forcefully rousing himself, said, "With so many people already sacrificed, no matter the calamity, we must grit our teeth and fight on." "Jiang Daoyu, where is the second connecting sky black pillar?" Pairs of eyes looked over. Jiang Fan's mind was slightly chaotic. He took a deep breath, said, "Most eastward direction." "East," fire worship sect leader's face slightly changed. Could it be Eastern Wilderness? To the east lies sequentially Kingly Mountain, fire worship sect, and the most eastern barbaric land. That's where the Jade Paper Heavenly Book's master and a sage took great actions. A place of 10,000 miles, desolate and uninhabited, with only endless silence. Except for a few disciples occasionally risking to find mixed element 9-colored marrow, no one ventures there. If there existed a connecting sky black pillar, it's entirely possible to go undiscovered. Fire worship sect leader's face solidified. Not good. Fire worship sect is in danger. Giants descending, the first target would certainly be fire worship sect. He frantically ascended, said, "Fire worship sect disciples, follow me." Seeing this, the rest of the sects also flew up one after another. Great Yin sect, assemble, support fire worship sect. Sanking Mountain, swiftly assemble, head to the extreme east. Myriad phenomena void realm, prepare for battle again. After brief panic, everyone quickly adjusted their state. Supporting Hunyuan State is a battle. Confronting giants descending on Taikang State is also a battle. There's nothing to fear. Wait. Great Wine Sacrifice's calm voice, spread throughout the scene, said, "Several venerates, along with Jiang Fan, Giant clan leader, follow me." Jiang Fan suddenly raised his head. Great Wine Sacrifice is going to act. No wonder the previous battle was so tough. He didn't make a move. Turns out he foresaw another possible event, thus restrained all along. Now, with the giant's ultimate army descending, he has no more apprehensions. With a sage taking action, there's indeed no need for nascent soul realm to participate. Just need to clean the battlefield and hunt remaining ancient giants afterward. Great Wine Sacrifice also said, "Nascent soul realm each return to their sect to hold position, just in case. If our action is unfavorable, rely on the sect's heritage to resist as long as possible, await reinforcement from other great states. If the action is smooth, I'll inform you to engage." Every sect has been preparing for the ancient giant battle for many years. Each has some heritage against ancient giants. Even Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion has 3 arrays to resist the Giant King. The 7 great gods of 3 god sect, and some older sects with much longer history than Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, wouldn't they have something? Of course, that's only a temporary defense, the last resort. Fire Worship sect leader was anxious, but Great Wine Sacrifice had given orders, could only say, "All right, then we'll temporarily remain at Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion." Each sect's men and horses subsequently moved towards the nearest transmission array, returning to their sect, prepared for defense. A murderous aura once again enveloped the entire Taikang state. Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion was the last to leave. Fairy Yun Shang's eyes were full of worry. She could feel the danger of the second battlefield might far exceed the first location. Despite Great Wine Sacrifice taking action, it may not guarantee Jiang Fan's safety. "Jiang, you must come back." Jiang Fan nodded, watched them leave. Suddenly he glimpsed the figures of Rebellious Guy and Little Tiger. Rebellious Guy held his head high, his little hands folded behind his head, proudly said, "I saved Jiang Fan's favorite woman this time, made a great contribution, oh. He'll definitely reward me heavily later." Little Tiger looked enviously. Indeed, when Fairy Yun Shang was about to be crushed to death, it was Rebellious Guy and Liang Feiyan together that killed 2 giants, saving her. As per Jiang Fan's principle of rewarding merit, he would indeed reward Rebellious Guy. "Rebellious Guy, come over. You performed well this time, I want to reward you." Jiang Fan's gaze shifted, suddenly called Rebellious Guy. Rebellious Guy was overjoyed, laughed heartily. "What did I say? The master will reward me heavily, right? Ha ha ha." Under Little Tiger's envious eyes, Rebellious Guy ran quickly to Jiang Fan, childishly said, "Big brother, I only did what I should have done. No need for any reward." Jiang Fan nodded, said, "It's necessary, it's necessary." He took out a shoe, a bit worn like it had been worn before. It's precisely picked from the purple crystal ore in Black Dragon Venerable's cave. It grew on a mysterious plant. Its function holds strong, instantaneous movement ability. In his hand was the largest shoe. Once activated, it can release the Heaven-Human 5 declines of the Great Venerate movement technique. It's undoubtedly a supreme life-saving item. However, it needs to be eaten to play its effect. This reward, Rebellious Guy would definitely like. Guy stared in astonishment at the old shoes in Jiang Fan's hands, his face full of confusion. "Is this a reward? Impossible, right?" Jiang Fan patted the Rebellious Guy's head and said, "Don't underestimate these shoes. Once activated, they can unleash the Heavenly Human 5 declines movement technique. Unless the Giant Emperor makes a move, they can help you escape death." The Rebellious Guy was overjoyed, bouncing and reaching out. "Thank you, big brother, thank you, big brother. This life-saving treasure is more valuable than anything." Jiang Fan asked, "Do you like them?" The Rebellious Guy nodded repeatedly. "I love them." Jiang Fan continued, "The activation method is a bit unusual, you don't mind, right?" The Rebellious Guy quickly replied, "Of course I don't mind." Jiang Fan relievedly put the shoes back in his chest, then picked up the Rebellious Guy and placed him on his shoulder, saying, "You have to eat the shoes to activate their speed. If I encounter great danger later, I'll depend on you." Wait. The Rebellious Guy's mind was spinning, and he said blankly, "Wasn't the shoes supposed to be my reward? Why did Big Brother tuck them into his own chest?" Jiang Fan explained, "They are completely yours, I just have the right to use them." The Rebellious Guy was bewildered. "Then you still want to take me to the battlefield?" Jiang Fan shrugged, saying matter-of-factly, "You're the owner of the shoes, of course I have to take you." "If you're not there, how can I activate them?" The rebellious guy finally understood. Jiang Fan is tricking him into going to the new battlefield to activate the shoes at a crucial moment, carrying him along to save their lives. And these shoes require eating to be activated. Jiang Fan, that rascal, couldn't stomach it himself, so he wants him to eat it. Wow, too much. He furiously glared at Jiang Fan, about to protest loudly. But the evil sword larger than his face was placed against his neck. Jiang Fan said meaningfully, "The master's words make no sense." The rebellious guy quickly changed his expression, smiling and rubbing his hands. "Makes sense, absolutely makes sense, more sense than the heavenly Tao. I've never seen such a solid sense in my life." Inside, he was furious, gritting his teeth. He's never met anyone so shameless. Jiang Fan then put away the sword, smiling. "You're a discerning demon. All right, let's cheerfully head to the new battlefield together." He nodded towards the great wine sacrifice, indicating readiness. The great wine sacrifice waved the horsetail whisk. He and true word venerable, heart demon venerable, bodhisattva, Jian Lanjiang, and the battle corpse vanished into thin air. Fire worship sect. The once bustling market had long been silent. All personnel had relocated inside the sect. The core formation deacons guarded various sect locations anxiously, while Foundation establishment disciples were protected in secret chambers and the main hall. On the roof of the sect master hall, Qian Lan Ferry and Yun Huo, the only remaining nascent soul realm guards, watched over the fire worship sect. Unlike Yun Huo, who looked tense, Qian Lan Ferry sat casually on the tiles, glanced at Yun Huo and said, "What's there to be nervous about? The battlefield is far away at the forbidden land of misfortune. If there was real fighting, the sect hierarch and elders would have informed us. Moreover, if ancient giants really came, we couldn't stop them." Yun Huo smiled wryly, understanding the logic. Yet he still couldn't control the tension. The opponents are ancient giants from 1,000 years ago. I wonder how the battle is going. He sat down too, anxiously. Qian Lan Ferry figured it out, saying, "Probably losing. How can we possibly defeat ancient giants?" She felt a hint of regret. "I should be bolder, force Yun Tianzhu to marry me. Then, as Pavilion Master's wife, beat Jiang Fan hard. That way I'd have no regrets even if I die." Yun Huo's mouth twitched. Still thinking about dealing with Jiang Fan, even though he can now kill divinity transformation cultivators. He comforted, "What if we win? Then it wouldn't be too late to become Pavilion Master's wife." As they spoke, a massive tremor suddenly occurred. It was coming from inside the fire worship sect. The two got up quickly, looking towards it. They saw in the forbidden land an eye-piercing fire column accompanied by enormous booming sounds shot up to the sky. The fire column reached the sky, burning away the clouds, disappearing into the depths of the sky, burning a large hole in the firmament. Colorful, strange fires fell from the sky, emitting terrifying heat waves. Qian Lan Ferry was shocked. Why did the fire spring erupt? It erupted not long ago, already releasing the compressed flames. Yun Huo also looked surprised. Odd, could it be caused by some powerful external force? Under their watch, the fire column rolled out massive amounts of smoke and dust from underground, radiating widely, leaving the entire view shrouded in gray. The fire column did not last long, slowly receding again. The two exchanged glances, feeling baffled. At this moment, Qian Lan Ferry's peripheral vision suddenly caught something, and she turned to look toward the sect's mountain gate. "Brother, what's that?" She pointed into the mist. Yun Huo followed her gaze, puzzled. They saw in the gray mist 2 red stars hanging high in the sky. "Stars, they're moving towards us. Wait, there are other colored stars." Behind the red stars, there were many more stars of different colors. Some were white, some were purple, some were green. Some were single stars, some were 2 stars together. There was even a cluster of 3 stars. Dense, countless, thud, 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 thud. As the stars approached, a muffled, earth-shaking rumble came closer, growing clearer. Like striking a massive drum, or like giant creatures walking. Yun Huo seemed to realize something, looking again at the sky full of stars, his body trembling. His pupils contracted sharply, his body too stiff to lift even a finger. Qian Lan Ferry beside him was no better. She gasped, her mind blank. They knew what it was, Giant King, a lineup of Giant Kings, including 2-star Giant King, even 3-star Giant King. The gray mist began to flow, shaken by the fearsome giant steps. As the footsteps grew heavier, the fog began to roil like boiling water, violently shaking. Boom, when a sky-splitting footstep thundered at the fire worship sect mountain gate. The mist was shaken apart, revealing a giant king over 20 zhang tall, entirely golden with 2 red stars on its forehead. Beside him, more giant kings emerged, each over 20 zhang tall. They stood in the fog, their figures looming. The aura they emitted shook the space of heaven and earth on the verge of collapse. Yun Hu froze in terror, forgetting to breathe. The disciples in the core formation realm stood like wooden statues. As for the foundation establishment disciples hidden in stone chambers and grand halls, they were already vomiting blood and collapsing due to the terrifying aura emitted by the giant kings. The only one slightly better off was Xianxia Land Fairy. After a brief moment of brain blankness, she decisively crushed the jade scroll in her arms, shouting urgently, "Quick, activate the mountain protection array!" Yun Hu awoke as if from a dream and hurriedly crushed the jade scroll in his arms. One yin and one yang, both jade scrolls must be activated simultaneously to activate the mountain protection array. Boom, the spirit vein beneath the fire worship sect erupted with blazing radiance, forming an 8-sided light curtain wall and a dome. The leading 2-star giant king stepped forward, his 20 zhang tall body looming like a mountain over the fire worship sect. Not even a single divinity transformation. Just 2 nascent soul early stage, enough for a little snack. He snorted lightly, casually punching the dome. Crack, the dome immediately trembled, showing numerous cracks. The entire fire worship sect, along with the spirit vein below, shook violently. Huh, the mountain protection array is quite something, able to withstand my strike. The 2-star giant king said in surprise. There are few in the world who can withstand a hit from him, but that's all it can do. He clenched his fist, preparing to strike with force. Xianxia Land Fairy and Yun Hu showed expressions of despair. This array was the reward from that mysterious red-faced elder, after borrowing the fire worship sect's earth fire for 60 years. He once said it could withstand 10 attacks from a 1-star giant king. Now in the hands of this 2-star giant king, it couldn't last 2 strikes. Bang! Without any suspense, the mountain protection array exploded into countless arcs of light scattering open after the second punch. The 2-star giant king's gaze fell on Xianxia Land Fairy, his mouth opened, and a long spatial scar appeared. It was clearly a tongue attack, but the speed was too fast to capture with the naked eye. By the time the spatial scar was seen, Xianxia Land Fairy's body was already entangled. In the next moment, she was about to be swallowed, consumed alive. Slash! At this moment, a 3-colored divine rainbow sliced toward the long tongue without warning. The 2-star giant king reacted rapidly, promptly abandoning Xianxia Land Fairy and retracting his tongue. The 3-colored divine rainbow missed, slicing the ground with a great crack extending to the 2-star giant king's feet. Instead of anger, the 2-star giant king showed a savage grin. Finally, something worthy came. His gaze went past Xianxia Land Fairy, looking behind her, only to see space flicker as Jiang Fan emerged from the no-self dust-cleansing technique. He recalled his 3 top-grade spirit swords, fixedly gazing at the group of giant kings before him with an extremely grave expression. Is this a joke? There are actually a full 20 giant kings. Yes, 20. Even Jiang Fan could not help but feel despair. How many divinity transformation realm combat powers do they have altogether? Unless the great wine sacrifice takes action otherwise. Jiang Fan could not fathom the dire scene of their meager divinity transformation confronting 20 giant kings. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several figures flickered behind him. Heart Demon Venerable took one glance, his face changed, sucking in a breath. All giant kings? True Word Venerable also blanched, saying gravely, and 2 2-star giant kings? No, there's also a 3-star giant king. Bodhisattva lost focus for a moment, hands clasped in serene laughter. He knew he was meant to face his tribulation. Jian Lanjiang smiled bitterly. Well, there'll be a place for my old self in the Taikang Mausoleum. Whoosh, the great wine sacrifice also appeared. He scanned the giant kings before him, disappointment flashing briefly in his eyes. Only you from the lower realm? The 2-star giant king noticed the great wine sacrifice. Evidently knowing who he was, his eyes showed caution but not fear. The only great wine sacrifice who never entered combat. The giant emperor says you are the most unique among all great wine sacrifices. The great wine sacrifice, holding his horsetail whisk, slowly moved forward. His gaze was calm yet profound, giving the giant kings an unbearable sense of pressure. It was only faced when confronting the giant emperor. The 2-star giant king said solemnly, "Since we dared come, how could we not consider you? Your opponent is not us." As his words fell, from the extreme east, an aura that shook the entire Taikang state spread outward. Whether giant kings or Jiang Fan and others, a surge of submission arose from the depths of their hearts. This aura existed only in one being. That is, the giant emperor. He has descended upon Taikang State. Jiang Fan felt great tumult in his heart. The stone giant king's warning was confirmed. The giant emperor truly left the central tribe. It was unexpected. He didn't descend upon the expert-filled heavenly state, nor the precarious Hunyuan state, but chose Taikang State. Despair deepened in everyone's hearts. The great wine sacrifice stopped, gazing towards the connecting sky-black pillar direction from the extreme east, then looking at the giant kings before him. He was caught in a dilemma. If he kills these giant kings before him, he would be discovered by the 9-day giant emperor and attacked fatally, never to have the chance to act again, and the giant emperor would completely obliterate Taikang State. But facing the giant emperor, Jiang Fan and others battling 20 giant kings, what chance do they have? Either choice is a dead end. Great wine sacrifice, go, Bodhisattva spoke, hands clasped. Everyone has their fate, don't worry about us. Everyone glanced at Bodhisattva. This was choosing to perish together with 20 giant kings, but they didn't object. Jiang Fan gripped the three-colored divine rainbow, said, Great wine sacrifice, kill the giant emperor, don't let us die in vain. Forsaking the 3 divinity transformation and 2 nascent souls to gain the opportunity to kill the giant emperor. It's worth. Heart Demon Venerable also took a deep breath, said, Suppose to die in the first wave battle, to live until now is already a gain. Go, great wine sacrifice, slay the giant emperor and let all great states see. True Word Venerable was silent, just quietly standing beside Jiang Fan. His attitude was clear. Even Jiang Lanjiang gave a hoarse laugh. I care not for life or death long ago, great wine sacrifice, go. Even the great wine sacrifice couldn't help but look back at them. In his aging eyes, something moved. With this departure, some of them, perhaps all, would be farewell forever. Seeing their determined gazes, he nodded. All right. I will definitely kill the giant emperor. With that said, he swung his whisk, vanished instantly. The vast world's atmosphere quickly dropped to freezing. 2 killing intents clashed in the sky, giving rise to invisible sparks. Jiang Fan laughed aloud, said, I'll go first. I'm a dying man, let me show everyone. This battle should leave no chance for survival. What he could do was to activate the 9-colored crystal and the lethal treasures on him, to take as many giant kings with him as possible. Hopefully this would provide True Word with a slight chance to survive. But as the fragrant breeze came, True Word Venerable held his shoulder, shook his head slightly and said, How could there be a reasoning where the heavenly human 2 declines hide behind while the atorifious nascent souls face death? If you can leave, then go. So many people at the heavenly mechanism pavilion are waiting for you. I am all alone, without attachments. Heart Demon Venerable walked forward with hands behind his back, electrifyingly imposing, arrogantly saying, Indeed, we Venerables are not dead yet, it's not your turn. Jiang Lanjiang, manipulating the battle corpse, strode forward. Jiang Daoyu, step back. Wait for me, this old bone, to depart first, then it won't be too late for you to die. Jiang Fan was moved in his heart. Everyone was resolved to face death. Even if all were annihilated in this battle, they would not let down the lives of Taikang State. He took out the 9-colored crystal, clenched it tightly. Then let's die together. His space origin moved, instantaneous movement to the group of giant kings. Just like those 9-orifice and 8-orifice nascent souls, rushing towards destruction resolutely. True Word Venerable, Heart Demon Venerable, Bodhisattva, and Jiang Lanjiang were all moved. Ha ha ha, I'm going too. Everyone, see you in the next life. Heart Demon Venerable laughed loudly and moved towards the giant group. True Word Venerable looked at the direction Jiang Fan disappeared into, smiled helplessly. Now, truly, there's no attachment. He immediately also charged into the giant group. Jiang Lanjiang laughed heartily. To die alongside 3 Venerables and a Central Earth hero like Jiang Daoyu, heavens are treating me well. Ha 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 ha, Battle Corpse, join me in the last stand. He, with the Battle Corpse side by side, charged into the group of giant kings without hesitation. Looking at the 4 people and 1 corpse rushing to kill, the 2-star giant king's face lost its mocking expression. Though there were only 4 people, their determination to face death made him feel a blazing fire of impact. If Taikang State had a few more of such heroes, would the ancient giants still have hope of winning? Fortunately, victory stood on the side of the giants. His eyes were filled with killing intent, coldly saying, Since they are courting destruction, let's grant them their wish. Savor the taste of the legendary flesh and blood of the human clan's divinity transformation. The giant kings emitted excited roars one after another. A bloodthirsty vertical eye locked greedily on the four who were rushing at them. The gaze of the two-star giant king locked on Jiang Fan, who arrived via spatial teleportation. "You're the one who captured Princess Zaijiang, Wang Qingxiao, aren't you? I'll personally eat you." His massive body bounced out with just a point of the toe, piercing the air with a terrifying whistling sound. Space collapsed long behind him, almost revealing void cracks. Such impact power is far beyond what a one-star giant king can compare to. With just one impact, Jiang Fan would be turned into blood mist. Moreover, the speed was such that Jiang Fan couldn't possibly dodge it. "Bullying the nascent soul realm, is that what you call skill?" Bang! The charging two-star giant king suddenly staggered and retreated. True Word Venerable appeared in a flash, the divine ring at the back of her head flickering unpredictably. Her appearance immediately drew the attention of 5 giant kings. One by one, the stars began to revolve. True Word Venerable raised her hand and waved, shouting, "Prohibit true words!" At the same time, she ignited a giant king with a fan, causing him to burn like wood on the spot, seeing about to kill him, with a puff sound. A water column unexpectedly engulfed it, extinguishing all flames on it. Not far away, a giant king with 2 shiny, droplet-like stars on his forehead came walking slowly. "Dangerous domain, I'll play with her, you all fall back." This is the second 2-star giant king, the Water Giant King. His origin perfectly counteracted the Phoenix Feather 9 Flames fan. A 2-star giant king with red stars on his forehead snickered, "All right, I will go deal with Wang Qingxiao instead." He glanced around, yet his expression changed slightly. Jiang Fan was gone, invisible, and quite a sophisticated invisibility technique. He narrowed his vertical eye, mocking, "Luckily, you carry Princess Zaijiang with you. Otherwise, your invisibility technique might actually cause us trouble." He took a pouch from his waist and scattered it out. Pieces the same color as Princess Zaijiang's skin floated in the air. "These are skin fragments left by Princess Zaijiang in the Central Tribe, sensing with her original self. Through this, her location could be pinpointed." In the next moment, the purple skin flew towards the direction not far away. That is the direction of Heart Demon Venerable. Heart Demon Venerable charged into a group of giants with a resolute stance. 5 one-star giant kings each activated their origins to besiege him. Fortunately, True Word Venerable's origin briefly hindered them from using their origins, or else he would already have turned to ashes. Yet he was not in a good situation either. His left arm was already gone, devoured by a giant king. Merely charging into the giant kings, he had suffered such a serious injury. But he was fearless of death, the divine ring at his back flickering intensely, sending profound waves radiating outward, sweeping in all directions. This was his heart demon domain, capable of infinitely stimulating people's negative emotions. Somewhat similar to the laws of the drunken great wine sacrifice, it stimulated the greed of the giant kings. Heart Demon Venerables, however, stimulated the killing, greed, and brutality of the giant kings. This caused them to temporarily lose their rationality. The 5 originally coordinated giant kings all went mad, attacking Heart Demon Venerable. And this was exactly what Heart Demon Venerable wanted. He gritted his teeth, focused on one giant king, and spat out several heavenly thunder stones containing thunderbolt, detonating them all. A massive surge of thunder power exploded forth. That amount of power was enough to initiate a 6-fold integration. At this moment, it all gathered before Heart Demon Venerable. "Undying Blade!" Heart Demon Venerable shouted angrily, the terrifying thunder power transforming into a massive thunder sword, fiercely stabbing into the giant king's mouth, while the latter screamed, attacking furiously. This strike could pierce the opponent's head. However, as the other 4 giant kings continued their mad attack, Heart Demon Venerable would also die. Heart Demon Venerable ignored them. In such a desperate situation, being able to trade 1 for 1 was worth it. "Go die!" Heart Demon Venerable endured the assault from the other 4 giant kings, piercing the thunder sword through the giant king's skull. The horrifying thunderbolt melted away the whole head along with the stars. At the same time, a giant wolf fang club smashed in front of him. Heart Demon Venerable had no way to avoid. He thought inwardly that it was the end, calmly awaiting death. However, the club strike was not as horrendous as imagined, only blasting him flying, causing searing pain all over, turning his head. A 3-color divine rainbow had severed the giant king's neck. Hence, the Wolf Fang Club lost its power in the strike against him. With the head rolling and blood splattering, it landed on the invisible person, revealing his silhouette. It was Jiang Fan. Demon Venerable, with a bloodied mouth, grinned. "Boy, not accompanying your true word wife to die, but choosing to accompany me, a big old man, to die." Jiang Fan quickly retrieved the 3 top-grade spirit swords and said, "Enough with the nonsense. Aren't you going to get up and slay another giant king?" He shook his body, shaking off the blood covering him, and once again fell into invisibility state. The other 3 giant kings had already recovered from the Heart Demon Venerable's domain. Realizing they had lost 2 companions, they were both shocked and furious, each smashing their wolf fang clubs towards the spot where Jiang Fan vanished. The Heart Demon Venerable seized the opportunity to teleport back again, swinging another undying blade at the giant king in the middle. The latter sensed something, twisted his head, and activated the essence on his forehead. A cloud of black poison mist erupted, sweeping toward the Heart Demon Venerable. "HMPH!" The Heart Demon Venerable snorted heavily through his nostrils, his body covered in massive thunder, dispersing the approaching poison mist. Thunder has a strong restraining effect on the poison mist. "Undying Blade!" He took the opportunity to unleash an undying blade, stabbing at the giant king. Without the massive thunder from the heavenly thunder stone, the power of this strike was greatly weakened, piercing the chest but failing to penetrate through. Meanwhile, the giant kings on the left and right sides realized what was happening. They roared angrily and activated their essences. But just then, the terrifying 3-colored divine rainbow reappeared, striking the poisoned giant king being stabbed by the undying blade. Behind, the poisoned giant king screamed in terror. The 2 giant kings quickly abandoned the Heart Demon Venerable, turning to deal with the Thunder Sword, wishing to save the poisoned giant king. The Heart Demon Venerable's expression changed. He was too late. Before the 3-colored divine rainbow fell, the poisoned giant king would escape the undying blade and flee easily. He gritted his teeth, pouring thunder power into the undying blade madly, solidifying it to the maximum. Then, with a forceful maneuver, he lifted the poisoned giant king and thrust him toward the approaching 3-colored divine rainbow, before the undying blade was broken by the 2 giant kings. The poisoned giant king's head was cleaved open alive by the 3-colored divine rainbow. Blood and brain matter splattered everywhere. Even the original star was split with a sword. "Poisoned giant king!" The 2 giant kings roared in grief and wrath. "Wang Chengxiao, if you have the guts, come out!" Jiang Fan swallowed an anti-void spirit pill and reactivated the sword array. However, a patch of purple fragments suddenly appeared around him, circulating around to reveal his approximate shape. "He's there!" The 2 giant kings charged in anger. One swept with a long tongue, and the other viciously hurled a wolf fang club. Jiang Fan's face changed dramatically, but fortunately, when surrounded by the purple fragments, he sensed danger and promptly utilized spatial teleportation to escape. Yet before he could catch his breath, an icy voice, sounding like it came from hell, eerily emerged from behind him. "In such a short moment you killed my 3 giant kings. Truly, you deserve to die." Turning his head, he saw. The 2-star giant king eyed him coldly, full of murderous intent. At this moment, the Heart Demon Venerable was again locked on by 5 giant kings. The tremendous commotion here could hardly escape the attention of other giant kings. The fall of 3 giant kings incited their sky-shattering fury. Together, they activated their essences, attacking the Heart Demon Venerable. Elsewhere, Jiang Lanjiang was trapped within the encirclement of 5 giant kings. 2 of the giant kings had been slashed with severe injuries, thoroughly enraging them. But they also realized that without Jiang Lanjiang's control, the battle puppet posed no threat. They immediately hurled their wolf fang clubs at Jiang Lanjiang, intending to smash him. The situation for True Word Venerable was also exceedingly difficult. Her Phoenix Feather 9 Flames fan was suppressed, insufficient to threaten the Water Giant King. Meanwhile, several 1-star giant kings took the opportunity to besiege her, cooperating with the Water Giant King to launch a deadly strike. Within just 10 breaths, Jiang Fan, True Word Venerable, Heart Demon Venerable, and Jiang Lanjiang, who had charged into the group of giant kings, all fell into the shadow of death. This was originally a battle destined for death. Being able to take down 3 giant kings was already a miracle. Just then, a wave of law radiated through heaven and earth. Except for Jiang Fan, every living being present, without exception, fell into a brief trance. "Stop!" It was a woman's voice, clear and pure like a mountain stream. Yet it possessed a mesmerizing charm. The two-star Giant King assaulting Jiang Fan and the Giant Kings surrounding True Word Venerable, Heart Demon Venerable, and Jian Lanjiang all halted their essences. Immediately thereafter, in the transmission hall of the Fire Worship Sect, a pair of perfectly matched lovers teleported hand in hand. The man with red lips and white teeth was indeed Dharma Seal. The woman was naturally Yue. The voice just now emanated precisely from her. At this moment, she emitted an intermittent wave of law, her body gently drifting like mist. The earlier action had expended a great deal of her remnant soul. Dharma Seal, normally with a gentle smile, looked at Yue with unspeakable guilt. But noticing Jiang Fan and the others in dire straits, he resolutely said, "Amidst this catastrophe, I too cannot remain unaffected." It turned out Yue had sensed the situation with the Giant Kings here. After informing Dharma Seal, he decisively came here. Given the current situation, the calamity in Taikang's state was unavoidable. Hiding in the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion, too, was certain death. Better to come to the battlefield and lend Jiang Fan a hand. Unexpectedly, they arrived just in time for their dire situation. Yue understood Dharma Seal's resolve to die, so she expended her soul power to save them once. However, this resolved nothing. After a brief lapse, the Giant Kings quickly regained their wits. Once again, they unleashed their ultimate attacks. Everyone was still doomed to die. Only Jiang Fan, unaffected by Yue's charming law, took advantage of the Giant King's momentary distraction. He relaunched the three-colored Divine Rainbow, slicing at the neck of the two-star Giant King behind him. The Divine Rainbow cleaved halfway into its neck, on the verge of a clean cut. Yet the original star on its brow activated. From the severed neck spewed terrifying magma. He was also a Fire Giant King, but a two-star Fire Giant King. The magma within was even more fearsome, capable of destruction on a planetary scale. The three-colored Divine Rainbow was sprayed apart, losing the sword array. As the law effects dissipated, the Fire Giant King clutched his neck, roaring in agony, his massive vertical eye filled with rage. He lifted his foot to mercilessly stomp toward Jiang Fan, who was right in front of him. This stomp left Jiang Fan with no escape. He sighed in regret, silently clutching the nine-colored crystal, ready to detonate it. Meanwhile, True Word Venerable, Heart Demon Venerable, and Jian Lanjiang, although briefly spared from death, were again overshadowed by it. Amitabha, a majestic and profound, compassionate yet solemn Buddhist chant suddenly resounded through the heavens and earth. The Bodhisattva, who had not joined the battle, sat cross-legged in the air. Holistic golden Sanskrit letters descended from the sky, circling around him. Mysteriously, he seemed to establish a certain connection with the heavens and earth. What was even more bizarre was that the Giant Kings present suddenly lost control. The Fire Giant King's kick towards Jiang Fan abruptly halted in midair. The Water Giant King and several other Giant Kings, who were besieging True Word Venerable, as well as the giants attacking Jian Lanjiang and Heart Demon Venerable, all stopped. They released their intent to kill and turned their gaze towards the Bodhisattva. Moreover, their bodies uncontrollably moved towards the Bodhisattva, surrounding him in the center. Swoosh, swoosh. The True Word Venerable and others who had narrowly escaped death gathered beside Jiang Fan, their eyes filled with suspicion and surprise. Jian Lanjiang asked confusedly, "What happened? Why did they stop trying to kill us and instead surrounded the Bodhisattva? It's as if he alone diverted all the Giant King's hatred." Jiang Fan looked at the golden runes falling from the sky and said, "It's the Bodhisattva's third grand wish. It doesn't matter anymore. While the Giant King's hatred is shifted, kill them." But, with the help of Yue, the Dharma Seal instantaneously moved to the four people's front. He faced away from them, his expression complex as he watched the Bodhisattva, his voice low and hoarse, tinged with sadness. "Don't go. The Bodhisattva's third grand wish will attack indiscriminately." Jiang Fan asked with suspicion, "What exactly is the third grand wish?" The Dharma Seal's voice became even more mournful, already choked with emotion. "The first grand wish, to hear the voices of all beings, fulfill the wishes of all beings. The second grand wish, to observe the forms of all beings, relieve the difficulties of all beings. The third grand wish, to savor the suffering of all beings, shield all beings from calamity. The first grand wish is heavenly listening, the second grand wish is enlightenment, and the third grand wish is to dissolve calamity. The Bodhisattva transferred your calamities onto himself. The final grand wish was actually to sacrifice himself to protect all life." Jiang Fan's heart trembled violently. This Bodhisattva, whom he once regarded as a villain in his heart. His final grand wish was unexpectedly to protect all life. Watching the Bodhisattva, completely surrounded by the giant kings and no longer visible, he clenched the three-colored divine rainbow, and a space ripple flashed as he was about to instantaneously move over. The Bodhisattva's slow, magnetic voice drifted over. "Master Jiang, this is the fate of this humble monk, there's no need to force it." Jiang Fan stopped his steps, anxiously saying, "You domineering bald monk, stop pretending to be a good person. We don't need you to save us. Quickly stop your grand wish," the Bodhisattva calmly said. "This humble monk made 3 vows to heaven and earth in order to attain the Bodhisattva path. Now that the world faces a calamity, this humble monk is fulfilling the 3rd vow to dissolve the calamity for you and all beings." Jiang Fan's eyes trembled, his heart surging with inexplicable reverence. The Bodhisattva used his actions to explain that long-standing Buddhist saying, "If I don't go to hell, who will?" He tightened his fist, his voice also becoming somewhat choked. "Fine, we'll come down to join you later," the Bodhisattva smiled peacefully. "You and I are fated, let me gift you one last saying. Do not dwell on past events, do not cling to past people. Preserve your true heart, see the future. I hope you attain divinity transformation soon, unobstructed." He was worried that Jiang Fan would develop regrets due to the deaths of Jiang Wuya and Yunyang Master in this battle, thereby hindering his path to divinity transformation, thus offering final guidance. Jiang Fan's eyes moistened. He had thought the Bodhisattva would advise him to defeat enemies or entrust White Horse Temple to him, but he never imagined he was worried about his path to divinity transformation. "Thank you," Jiang Fan's voice grew more choked as he retreated with the others, because the Bodhisattva was now completely surrounded by the giant kings. Even his Buddha light was obscured, as though he had fallen into hell. The Bodhisattva put his palms together. "Good. This humble monk is going." As his palms clapped with a light sound, the surrounding golden Sanskrit inscriptions congregated 100 feet above his head, forming a swirling Sanskrit vortex. They produced incomparably powerful destructive force, gradually tearing the space with void fissures. Soon, it completely tore open. A terrifying void black hole with a diameter of 100 feet suddenly appeared. This was the 3rd grand wish, to drag himself and his enemies into eternal hell together. With the emergence of the void black hole, the enormous space power of its sudden appearance instantly swept and absorbed 2 giant kings. The giant kings, influenced by the grand wish, finally awoke. Their faces changed greatly, each activating their source or desperately attempting to escape outwards. But how terrifying was the suction power of the void. Even the heavenly human 5 declines might not withstand it. Groups of giant kings were swept towards the void. The Bodhisattva himself was also heading towards the void with them. He used his own body to perish with at least a dozen giant kings, halting the apocalyptic calamity of Taikang State. However, at that moment, the hidden 3-star giant king who had remained inactive raised his hand. In his palm was a piece of black bone, emanating a terrifying curse power. Crack! As the bone shattered, a deeply unsettling dark force swept through. Including the 2-star giant king, everyone fell into a brief coma. Jiang Fan and others were not spared, their vision went black and they fainted on the spot. Before losing consciousness, he sensed this law. The sleeping law, the very giant emperor's law that caused Wudong Venerable to die in his sleep. The law's influence was not just on people. The void black hole, which was about to engulf the Bodhisattva and almost all the giant kings, also fell into a sleep-like state. The space power disappeared suddenly, and the fissures quickly closed. Thud! The Bodhisattva and many giant kings fell to the ground, waking up in shock. Jiang Fan and others also regained consciousness as the power of laws disappeared. Watching the disappeared void black hole, Jiang Fan's expression remained as calm as water. Almost, the Bodhisattva could have wiped out all the giant kings except the 3-star giant king. Unfortunately, the effort ended in failure. The giant vertical eye of the 3-star giant king surged with anger, issuing a cold, chilling voice. "Kill him!" The Bodhisattva's 3rd grand wish was too terrifying. If it hadn't been for the 5-star giant king handing over the giant emperor's gifted law, they might have suffered a defeat. In fact, there was no need for him to order. The fire giant king and others, relieved of their ordeal, were already enraged beyond measure. The fire giant king shouted, "Damn bald monk! Kill him for me, no, devour him for me!" Several 1-star giant kings charged forward, opening their blood-red mouths, intending to devour the Bodhisattva alive. The Bodhisattva remained neither joyful nor sorrowful. He merely glanced up at the vanished black hole, sighed slightly, and closed his eyes, sitting cross-legged. With palms put together, he lowered his head in silence, allowing the giant kings to pounce and devour him. "Bodhisattva!" Jiang Fan roared with rage, lunging forward. True Word Venerable and others were full of grief and anger, all charging together. How could they bear to watch the Bodhisattva get eaten alive? But it was too late. When they instantaneously moved above the group of giant kings, only tattered cassia and a pool of blood remained on the ground. The Bodhisattva had been devoured by the 5 giant kings, even his soul gone completely. A generation's Bodhisattva, once the strongest divinity transformation realm of Taikang state, thus fell. The fire giant king stared angrily at the arriving Jiang Fan and others, his mouth curved with cruelty as he spoke. This dead bald monk was eaten alive, yet he didn't utter a sound. "I somewhat admire him. Ha ha ha." However, as he laughed, an agonizing roar suddenly sounded beside him. The 5 giant kings who devoured the Bodhisattva were all clutching their stomachs, faces full of pain. Their bellies swelled rapidly, like balls being inflated. Moreover, the condition spread throughout their bodies. In the blink of an eye, the 5 giant kings bloated to over 30 zhang, and their skin stretched until it was covered with countless cracks. The fire giant king was startled, but quickly understood and exclaimed angrily, "Breath soil! It's breath soil! This bald monk, he actually ate a lot of breath soil before he died." He hurriedly grabbed a nearby giant king and decisively activated his source, melting his abdomen and burning away the entire stomach along with the breath soil. In this way, he barely rescued him from the brink of explosion. But it was too late for the other 4. Boom, 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 boom. Among the 4 thunderous explosions, 4 giant kings exploded into blood on the spot, drenching the other giant kings like a torrential downpour. The fire giant king, water giant king, and the remaining giant kings all stood still in shock. No one expected that the Bodhisattva would use breath soil to perish with the enemy again. He took down as many as 6 giant kings by himself. This loss was too heavy. Jiang Fan was also thrown into great shock. The last time he went to White Horse Temple, the Bodhisattva had asked for a handful of breath soil. He thought it was prepared for a disciple. It turns out it was reserved for himself. He had long prepared for today's events. "Bodhisattva," Jiang Fan murmured lowly, left with only admiration in his heart at this moment. A beam of Buddha light shone upon Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan suddenly looked up, a hint of joy flashing in his eyes. Was it the Bodhisattva? Could he still be alive? But when he saw the source of the Buddha light, he was slightly shocked. It was Dharma Seal. He gazed at the place where the Bodhisattva had fallen, looking at those familiar remnants of the cassia, his eyes filled with sorrow. Paths of Buddha light surged from his body outward, gradually turning him into a golden figure. "Dharma Seal." Yue turned her head and looked at him, watching the Buddhist power that should have long dissipated, and changed her face again and again. Dharma Seal placed one palm against his chest and murmured, "Buddha once saw an eagle preying on a dove, felt compassion, and saved the dove. The eagle asked, 'If I don't eat the dove, I'll starve to death. You saved the dove, who will save me?' Buddha said, 'Eat my flesh.' So Buddha cut his own flesh and fed it to the eagle. In ancient times, Buddha cut his flesh to feed the eagle. Now the Bodhisattva sacrifices himself to the demons. Why should I remain untouched?" The Buddha light on his body grew increasingly intense. He turned to look at Yue beside him. He glanced down at their clasped hands. He gently let go of Yue's hand, clasped his palms together, and said, "Buddhism is now empty, I must return." He was actually returning to Buddhism. In fact, Dharma Seal's heart had never left Buddhism. Yue's beautiful face trembled slightly, asking, "Why? I've been with you for so long and you still can't forget Buddhism." Dharma Seal gazed deeply into Yue's eyes, his gaze filled with bitterness, and said, "I love Buddhism, I love the Taikang state, I love Central Earth, I love the living beings." Yue, unwilling, pleaded, "What about me?" Dharma Seal closed his eyes, and after a painful struggle, he slowly opened them and smiled with relief. "I love you too, and I love this vast earth and homeland. Thank you for accompanying me across the 9 states, experiencing worldly affairs. Now, I should do something for the 9 states." He turned to face the giant kings, gradually gaining enlightenment in his eyes, and spoke calmly. "Buddhism often speaks of cleansing the 6 senses. But how do you sever the 6 senses? Enter the world, and you will understand what emotions are, see all beings, and you will know the wonders of the myriad forms. Hear the myriad sounds, and you will know the exotic realm is not distant. Smell the 100 fragrances. And you will know the enchantment of the world, taste delicacies. And you will know the richness of the human world, endure the wind and rain. And you will know the hardships and sorrows. Only by understanding the six senses can you sever the six senses. Only by taking up can you ultimately let go. He meditated silently, and the Buddha light on his body grew ever stronger. Finally, when the words "take up and let go" were spoken, the blazing Buddha light burned away his magnificent robes, burned away his jet-black long hair. Paths of Sanskrit descended from the sky, surrounding him engulfed in Buddha light. He took the step that the heavenly listening bodhisattva had taken in the past. He attained the bodhisattva fruit position. The difference is, the heavenly listening bodhisattva attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree for 10 years, while the Dharma seal Vajra entered and exited the mortal world. In a single thought, he became mortal in another, he attained Buddhahood. In just a few months, he walked the path many Vajra pursued over long years. Now he needed to make a great vow to heaven and earth. Only with heaven and earth's recognition could he attain the bodhisattva state. The Dharma seal Vajra gazed at the giant kings, recalling the countless humans who had died and the many human clan martyrs who had sacrificed themselves. He looked up at the sky, his voice sonorous and forceful. I, Dharma seal, make this great vow. Until the giants are vanquished, I vow not to attain Buddhahood. The heavenly listening bodhisattva had 3 great vows, but he only one. A nearly impossible and arduous vow. Heaven and earth sensed his resolve. The Sanskrit surrounding him gathered beneath him, forming a massive 12-leaf golden lotus. The blazing Buddha light on his body also withdrew inwardly. With ruby-red lips and white teeth, donned in a red cassia, seated upon the 12-leaf golden lotus, with a serene smile, a new bodhisattva appeared. A line of words flashed above his head. Pingshin Bodhisattva. A brand new bodhisattva was born. Through his own comprehension, by making a vow to heaven and earth, he attained the bodhisattva fruit position. Everyone was stunned. No one expected that the Dharma seal Vajra would become a Buddha at this moment. The true word venerable was the first to react. He looked at the remains of the heavenly listening bodhisattva, then at the newly risen Pingshin bodhisattva, filled with sorrow, relief, and determination. What are we waiting for? Let's take down a few more giant kings. We can't be outdone by the heavenly listening bodhisattva. Including the 4 killed by Jiang Fan and the heart demon venerable together, they had already slain a total of 10 giant kings. Out of 20 giant kings, they had killed more than half. They had far exceeded expectations. Now any more they killed was a bonus. The heart demon venerable laughed loudly. Fellow Taoists of the outer state, did you see that? This is how we in the Taikang state deal with enemies, learn from it. Ha ha ha. With that, he charged into the group of giant kings with the true word venerable. Jian Lanjiang also laughed up at the sky. Let's join forces and kill a few more. He also controlled his warriors and followed the true word venerable. Jiang Fan suppressed the grief in his heart and decisively activated the divine rainbow, charging in with the true word venerable. The 4-in-1 corpse combined forces, targeting any 1-star giant king, and the opponent could not escape death. The group of giant kings below fell into a frenzy of confusion. The bodhisattva's self-sacrifice and the fearless resolve of these 4-in-1 corpse finally brought fear to the notorious giant kings. For a moment, the 1-star giant kings all retreated. The 2-star giant kings of water and fire both showed a hint of fear, not daring to advance. This scene utterly enraged the seated 3-star giant king. He snorted heavily. A bunch of useless wretches. 20 against 5 and you end up like this. They lost 10, while Jiang Fan and the others only lost 1. Who would believe this? He had to take action himself. King's forehead flickered with bright starlight. 3 stars as dark as the void spun rapidly. Space lock! In the next instant, an invisible space barrier appeared in the sky between the group of giant kings and Jiang Fan and others. The group dove down, colliding with the space barrier, unable to penetrate it. Only true word venerable managed to barely crack it a bit. Jiang Fan's pupils shrank and he said, "He's the space giant king." Be careful. True word venerable and the others' faces changed drastically. Among all giant kings, the threat of the space giant king was definitely one of the top. Moreover, the opponent was a 3-star giant king. It's feared that with a thought, he could kill anyone among them except true word venerable. Separate. Jiang Fan had witnessed the terror of a 1-star space giant king and knew full well that if they stayed together, they would all be annihilated. Whoosh, everyone immediately shot out in all directions. As they barely escaped, the space barrier beneath their feet shattered into countless space fragments, explosively sweeping across the surroundings. Thud thud, a series of blood mists erupted. Heart Demon Venerable's chest was slashed open with a foot-long cut, and a piece was sliced off the right side of his head. Blood and brain matter spurted simultaneously, compounded with a hand that had been bitten off earlier, leaving him nearly crippled. Fortunately, he had a piece of heavenly clothes, divine water in his mouth, which he bit down on in time to continue his life. Jiang Fan hid behind a battle corpse, losing only a chunk of flesh from his shoulder. But the battle corpse was so disfigured, its arm holding a black blade was almost cut off, causing him great distress. Pingshan Bodhisattva's youthful face was marked by several bloody scars, and the 12-leaf golden lotus beneath his feet had deep marks on it. Even True Word Venerable was not spared, with blood oozing from multiple places, staining his clothes red. The only one still intact was Jiang Fan. He had a 5-magnetic yuan mountain in front of him, though its body had several chunks sliced off by the space fragments. Even the black dragon armor he wore had white cut marks on it, nearly piercing through. The 3-star space giant king, once he made a move, nearly took everyone's life. And this was just a casual strike to protect the group of giant kings. The 2-star fire giant king's face changed slightly and said, "Sir, the king ordered you not to intervene. If he finds out." The 3-star space giant king's eyes were as cold as water. "All of you are useless with over half casualties. Whether I make a move or not, the king won't spare me." He glared poisonously at Jiang Fan and the others. "A few ants killing so many of our giant kings. Letting you die is too easy on you." Jiang Fan was confused. No wonder the 3-star giant king hadn't intervened earlier to save them. With his space origin, no giant king could be killed by them. Turns out, he was under orders not to strike. The one who ordered it should be the 5-star giant king, right? Isn't that the Black Sun King? Or another 5-star giant king? If it's the latter, then there's 2 5-star giant kings. At that thought, the despair in Jiang Fan's heart deepened. The 3-star giant king did not give him time to think, his eyes filled with cold, malicious intent. "All of you die?" 3 black stars on his forehead exploded again. In the next moment, Jiang Fan felt his whole body imprisoned, like he was buried in stone. Let alone escaping, even moving a finger was difficult. The first to be killed by the 3-star giant king was Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan was not panicked, only sighed silently in his mind. Heavenly listening, Bodhisattva had already met his fate. It was his turn. True Word Venerable's pupils shrunk dramatically as he charged like a shadow. Heart Demon Venerable, Pingshan Bodhisattva, and Jiang Fan's faces also changed drastically as they rushed over, roaring. "If you dare, come at me." "Stop. Kill me first. Beast, let go of Jiang Fan." Seeing them so anxious, the 3-star giant king sneered cruelly. "The one the giant emperor has named to be killed, you think you're worthy to die in his place? Say goodbye to him." The origin star on his forehead spun violently. The space imprisoning Jiang Fan suddenly collapsed. Jiang Fan, caught within, felt an icy sensation penetrate throughout his body. Following that, a tidal wave of pain surged through his mind. Is this the taste of death? Jiang Fan's heart gave a bitter smile, sending his final divine thought to the space mirror he held. "Little Killin, it's up to you." Inside the space mirror, the little Killin clutched a 9-colored crystal, its eyes wet with tears. Back when the 3-star space giant king made his first move, Jiang Fan had a premonition that he would be the first to be killed. So, he secretly entrusted the 9-colored crystal to the little Killin. If he didn't get the chance to act, then the little Killin would take his place and trigger the crystal. Hopefully, like the Bodhisattva, it could take down a group of giant kings as well. After conveying his final divine thought, Jiang Fan closed his eyes. Scenes of his life swirled through his mind like a carousel. Some unfulfilled regrets, some cherished faces, and those like Jiang Wuya, Yunyang Master, and Bodhisattva, who made him feel sadness. Farewell, this world. He silently bade goodbye, calmly awaiting the fate of death meant for him. However, just as the imprisoned space was about to shatter, threatening to grind his body to dust, a terrifying roar that oppressed heaven and earth crashed forth. The entire world shook violently, and the horizon visibly collapsed. It seemed as if some great terror was coming to crush heaven and earth. The attention of all present giant kings was captured. Even True Word Venerable and the others turned back, shocked. That aura made everyone, both giants and humans, tremble with fright. Boom! The sky above their heads suddenly caved in. The ground rolled like waves, mountains crumbled, countless halls of the fire worship sect collapsed abruptly. The space overhead undulated like waves. This momentum felt like the descent of a supreme. Whoosh! The sound of breaking air exploded abruptly. A jet-black stone steel appeared above their heads. It was human height, yet it bore the relics of time, wrapped in an ancient, unextinguishable battle spirit. A terrifying aura emerged from the steel. The aura spread, and those who smelled it, including the three-star Giant King, felt dizzy and nauseous. The three-star Giant King was taken aback. The aura of misfortune. What is this stone steel? Why did it come flying here by itself? Jiang Fan stared at the black stone steel in stunned silence, then his heart surged with great doubt. Isn't this the misfortune god steel? Wasn't it in the hands of the misfortune sage's remains? Why did it fly here on its own? True Word Venerable and the others also guessed what the steel was, all with expressions of wonder. They couldn't understand why the divine steel from the Forbidden Land flew here by itself. In the next moment, the misfortune god steel shot straight toward the three-star Giant King. The latter's eyes turned cold, leaving Jiang Fan snorting. A broken stone steel wants to attack me. His forehead's origin power activated, forming a space barrier to imprison it. However, the steel only remained imprisoned for an instant before unleashing a powerful wave of misfortune, shattering the space barrier and smashing into the three-star Giant King hard. What? The three-star Giant King was shocked and forcefully released both his fists. Even the space bore minute void cracks from his blows. Bang! In a deafening boom, the three-star Giant King staggered back, his face filled with shock. He looked down at his fist, which was already flayed, the white bones exposed. Strands of misfortune were spreading into his body through the wound, yet the god steel remained firmly in place. What on earth is this thing? Why does it have its own consciousness? The three-star Giant King shouted in anger and shock. The steel ignored him, flying back to the space that imprisoned Jiang Fan. It pressed down gently, causing the space to shatter. Jiang Fan managed to escape, looking like a porcelain figure about to break, his body covered with countless cracks. A single touch would cause it to shatter. He quickly took out a heavenly clothes divine water and consumed it, the cracks rapidly disappearing. The icy, tearing pain inside his body also faded away like a receding tide. Ignoring his body, he fixed his gaze firmly on the misfortune god steel before him, his eyes filled with confusion, and hesitantly asked, "Do you have your own spiritual wisdom?" The steel descended in front of him, meeting his gaze. A familiar voice, making Jiang Fan incredulous, emerged from within the steel. "It's me, brother." Jiang Fan felt as if the world was spinning, as though time had reverted. His pupils widened, his whole body trembled uncontrollably, and disbelief filled his eyes. There were many who called him brother in this world. The Four Seas Demon Emperor and the Silver Apricot Tree were among those who addressed him that way. But only one person made him unable to believe this form of address would appear again. And that was Jiang Wuya, who had already fallen. The True Word Venerable and others also recognized it, simultaneously showing expressions of disbelief. They stared unblinkingly at this steel. Jiang Fan's throat moved slightly, partly out of fear that he had misheard. He trembled and said, "Jiang, big brother, is it really you?" A voice of relief came from the steel. "Thank you, my brother, for guarding the mountains and rivers of Taikang State. I have seen it all with my own eyes." It indeed was Jiang Wuya. Tears welled up in Jiang Fan's eyes as he rushed forward, holding the edges of the steel, excitedly saying, Weren't you gone?" He had witnessed Jiang Wuya's last wisp of soul's light disappearing into the void. How could he return in the form of the misfortune god steel? Jiang Wuya apologized. "Sorry for worrying you. I did indeed die, and my consciousness dissipated too. It was the misfortune god steel's spirit that absorbed all my scattered soul lights into the steel to nourish them. That way, consciousness was reformed, but it's just consciousness still. If I leave the steel, I would turn back into scattered light spots. Now, I don't know if I am considered a soul of the human clan or the artifact spirit of the steel." He ended with a bitter smile. Jiang Fan suddenly understood. When the great wine sacrifice brought him into the Forbidden Land, it was said that if he was destined with the misfortune god steel, he should take it away. Unfortunately, when he arrived, the steel did not respond. In the end, it was Jiang Wuya's self-sacrifice, with a strong will to fulfill the beings that gained the steel's approval. At the moment of his death, his soul lights were all absorbed, thus allowing him to continue surviving as the artifact spirit of the misfortune god steel. At the same time, Jiang Fan somewhat understood why the person assigned to guard the light shield by the great wine sacrifice was not Evil Crow Venerable, nor Heart Demon Venerable, nor bodhisattva, but Jiang Wuya. He had foreseen that only someone like Jiang Wuya, who was wholeheartedly righteous, would gain the steel's approval, and ultimately mobilize this steel to become the backbone of the great battle. He swept away the grief in his chest, a relieved smile on his face as he patted the side of the steel. If our Taikang state can survive this catastrophe, I will use all my remaining life to help you reshape your body. Jiang Wuya laughed. That's for the future. For now, let's continue the battle. Leave that 3-star giant king to me. For the rest, kill as many as you can. With that, he charged at the 3-star giant king with the force to suppress all beings. The latter was both shocked and furious, shouting distantly to the water and fire 2-star giant kings. What are you waiting for? Kill them, not a single one should be left. Otherwise, the king will not spare you useless lot. The fire giant king stood resolutely. They had lost 10 giant kings in battle, while the enemy was just a few. If the king found out, they would not escape punishment. Thinking of the king's cruelty, he shivered and looked at Jiang Fan and others with killing intent. He decisively pulled out his golden wolf fang club, grimly saying, "With our 9 giant kings, are we afraid of just 5 and a corpse? Besides, we have 2 2-star giant kings." After a brief panic, the giant kings regained their composure, displaying ferocity. The main reason for their heavy casualties was due to the bodhisattva's strange, grand aspiration and the consumption of his blood-containing breath soil. Otherwise, Jiang Fan and others would have long been crushed to fragments by them. Now, without the bodhisattva, what difficulty would there be in killing them? Jiang Fan and others also maintained a solemn demeanor. Though they no longer faced the enormous threat of the 3-star giant king, they were up against 9 giant kings. This battle, the odds seemed still dim. Pingshan Bodhisattva said calmly, "Correction, it's not 9 against 5. He silently chanted a Buddhist mantra, and the surrounding ground suddenly gathered into a mass of sand, forming a 20-zhang-tall giant king. It was the converted 2-star giant king. Heavenly Listening Bodhisattva had once said that the effect of the converted grand aspiration derived from this world, and even if he died, its effects would persist. Now that Pingshan Bodhisattva had taken over the Bodhisattva fruit position, he naturally could command the Sand Giant King. Everyone's eyes lit up slightly. Now it was 6 against 9, finally offering a spark of hope. In addition, Pingshan Bodhisattva looked up to the sky, reciting a Buddhist phrase. Golden Sanskrit characters fell from the sky onto the 12-leaf golden lotus beneath him. He had indeed activated the grand aspiration of, "The giants shall not live, otherwise I shall not achieve Buddhahood." The golden lotus expanded under the nourishment of the Sanskrit, its leaves increasing from 12 to 16. The 12-leaf golden lotus represented a first-grade bodhisattva. The 16-leaf golden lotus represented a second-grade bodhisattva. Pingshan Bodhisattva locked his gaze on the fire giant king, calmly stating, "With the combat power of the heavenly human 2 declines, we're 2 against 2. Jiang Fan, shocked yet delighted, realized the difficult aspiration established by the bodhisattva, the greater its effect. For example, Heavenly Listening Bodhisattva's 3rd aspiration, transforming tribulations, had the powerful ability to open the void, taking countless enemies with it in destruction, while Pingshan Bodhisattva had made the colossal aspiration that the giants would not survive, otherwise he would not achieve Buddhahood. The abilities it provided were even stronger, which was, when encountering giants, he could stand equally matched against them. As his Buddhist name, Pingshan Bodhisattva, thus it came to be. True Word Venerable dealt with the Water Giant King, and Pingshan Bodhisattva took on the Fire Giant King. The remaining 7 1-star Giant Kings were handled by Jiang Fan, Heart Demon Venerable, Jian Lanjiang, and the Sand Giant King. 7 against 4. Among them, the war corpses controlled by Jian Lanjiang and the Sand Giant King were considered puppets. Their combat power was slightly weaker than the ordinary divinity transformation realm. The real deadly force was Jiang Fan and Heart Demon Venerable. However, compared to the time of deepest despair, it was infinitely better. Murderous intent flashed in Jiang Fan's eyes. "Everyone, this is the final fight." Without a word, True Word Venerable filled his eyes with hostility and charged at the Water Giant King. Pingshan Bodhisattva, riding the 12-leaf golden lotus, charged at the Fire Giant King. The Fire Giant King snorted angrily. "Attack! Priority is to kill Wang Chengxiao." 7 1-star Giant Kings immediately grasped their wolf fang clubs, attacking Jiang Fan and his group. Among them, 4 joined forces to target Jiang Fan alone. Their attacks were extremely ruthless. Apart from the giant king of the green star, the remaining three giant kings launched their source power together, planning a joint strike to annihilate Jiang Fan. Once he was dead, the remaining heart demon venerable, Jian Lanjiang, and the sand giant king would be easily slaughtered. No matter how desperately Jiang Fan and heart demon venerable counterattacked, or how much the heavenly listening bodhisattva sacrificed himself, they still couldn't change the desperate situation of the human clan. Seeing this, Jiang Fan laughed in anger. "Is it just because I took your princess hostage? The giant emperor hates me so much? Fine, then let him hate me even more." He took out the mirror sealing Princess Zaijiang, hung it in front of his chest, and said coldly, "Come on, let's perish together with the princess." The three giant kings were startled and hurriedly withdrew their source power, to avoid killing Princess Zaijiang as well. "Despicable!" The three giant kings roared in anger. Although Princess Zaijiang couldn't see what was happening outside, she could hear. The Black Sun Royal Court army was annihilated, she already knew. Now she had also joined forces with the Heart Demon Venerable to kill four. At this moment, Princess Zaijiang truly regretted not choosing to die with Jiang Fan back when she faced Wu Gu and the five-star Giant King. This left such a huge, hidden danger for the giants and caused so many casualties. Seeing Jiang Fan using the same trick again, taking her as a hostage, Princess Zaijiang didn't hesitate and said coldly, "I command you as the princess. Attack me. Do not disobey." The expressions of the three giant kings changed, and after a moment of hesitation, they once again activated their stars. With the princess's order, they didn't dare not to obey. Jiang Fan had foreseen this and was not surprised. He said calmly, "Then let us together take one last look at this world." He raised his hand, and a jade bottle appeared. It was filled with black liquid. As soon as it appeared, Princess Zaijiang's face changed sharply, as she sharply sensed that her source power was out of control. The star that should have been calm on her forehead suddenly spun slightly, while the three giant kings who were activating their source power found the stars on their foreheads sometimes stopping, sometimes spinning, becoming extremely chaotic. Looking at Jiang Fan himself, his eyes lost focus, his whole body exuding a strange aura. A strong sense of madness spread out. Princess Zaijiang's expression changed slightly. "Be careful. This black liquid contains outer heaven power, which will affect our source power." This substance was originally from the Black Crystal Mine in the cave abode of Black Dragon Venerable. Ling Shu and Liu Li have both been sealed within it. The alien power inside it initially triggered Jiang Fan's madness, nearly driving him insane. Later, Jiang Fan used the heaven-slaying furnace to melt a corner of the coffin, saving Ling Shu and Liu Li. The black mist that volatilized was then condensed into black liquid by the mountain river tripod, containing a massive amount of alien power. Once released now, even the giant kings in front of them wouldn't be able to avoid having their source power thrown into chaos. What confused Princess Zaijiang was why Jiang Fan himself fell into madness even before he crushed the jade bottle. Did this move have any meaning? Having dealt with Jiang Fan for so long, she knew well that Jiang Fan must have a deeper purpose for each move. With a sharp look in her eyes, she said, "Ignore the source power, quickly kill him with your physical bodies." The three giant kings, plus the giant king of the green star, quickly performed instantaneous movement. Four house-sized gigantic fists all struck towards Jiang Fan from the air. At the critical moment, the blood of the sage and the nascent soul scar within Jiang Fan simultaneously erupted, pulling him back from his madness. His consciousness returned in an instant. Feeling the oppressive, destructive power of the four forces without a second thought, he crushed the jade bottle in his hand. The black liquid splashed everywhere. The four giant kings couldn't avoid it. They were all struck by it, as was Jiang Fan. Only under the effect of the sage's blood and nascent soul scar, his crazed state instantly returned to clarity, while the four giant kings had their source power thrown into disarray. The giant king of light, the giant king of sight, and the giant king of the green star had their source power explode out. Fortunately, their source power swept towards other directions, not affecting those present. But the case was different for the Frost Giant King's source power, which after erupting launched an indiscriminate attack on the surroundings. Crack, crack. Apart from him, everyone else was affected by the Frost origin. The three giant kings, Jiang Fan and Princess Zaijiang, were all frozen solid, unable to move. Princess Zaijiang was shocked and exclaimed urgently, "Seize this chance, kill Jiang Fan now." The Frost Giant King didn't hesitate at all, ignoring his companions, and a long tongue viciously pierced through Jiang Fan's head. But just as the long tongue was piercing a short distance, Princess Zaijiang's time origin also activated, and within a radius of 3 feet around her, time began to reverse. The frost on Jiang Fan quickly melted away, and the wound on his head healed. The stabbing tongue retreated back into the air. Not good! Princess Zaijiang's pupils contracted. She then realized that Jiang Fan had not taken her out to perish together. With Jiang Fan's methods, there were plenty of ways for him to take her with him in death at his last moment. The only reason to bring her out was that he wanted to use the alien power to trigger the Giant King's source power. And to survive the chaos, he needed to utilize her time origin. Damn it, Princess Zaijiang cursed to herself as her heart tightened. Jiang Fan had recovered, but the Giant King of Light, the Giant King of Sight, and the Giant King of the Green Star were still frozen. They became motionless targets. Stop him, don't let him attack, Princess Zaijiang urgently reminded. The Frost Giant King, realizing the issue, grabbed a wolf fang club and swung it fiercely at Jiang Fan, attempting to entangle him. His source power could only last for 3 breaths. He only needed to stall Jiang Fan momentarily. However, Jiang Fan neither dodged nor evaded, decisively activating the 3-color divine rainbow, charging towards the nearest Giant King of Light. As for the swinging wolf fang club, he grabbed the rebellious guy on his shoulder and threw it out. The rebellious guy screamed in fright. "Ah, why are you throwing me?" With the shadow of the wolf fang club looming, the rebellious guy suddenly remembered something, trying desperately to puff up his chest. Crack, a peculiar scene unfolded. The wolf fang club hit the rebellious guy's chest and directly shattered. The sight left the Frost Giant King dumbfounded. The rebellious guy was also stunned, but quickly recalled a long-forgotten innate divine ability. That is, breaking stones on its chest with absolute certainty. In the past, even when Jiang Fan used a shard of a broken low-grade spiritual artifact, the rebellious guy could break it with its chest. The Giant King's Wolf Fang Club was also a spiritual artifact, entirely within its capability to withstand. It breathed a long sigh of relief. Suddenly realizing a warmth in its buttocks, it looked down to see its diaper wet. It had been frightened to the point of urination again. Its small blue face flushed crimson with shame and anger. It cursed quietly. "Jiang Fan, I'll remember this debt." The Frost Giant King came to his senses, sensing something amiss. In haste, he turned to spit out his tongue, attempting to take away the Giant King of Light. But it was a step too late. Jiang Fan had meticulously planned several steps ahead to kill one of the 4 Giant Kings, to forcibly pluck the tiger's tooth. King of Light shot up into the sky, yet the 3-colored divine rainbow chased it and shattered the head along with the stars. "No!" The Giant King of Frost roared furiously. Jiang Fan was ruthless, not even leaving a chance for the Giant King of Light to be reborn from a drop of blood. Princess Zaijiang frowned deeply, yet Jiang Fan had succeeded. 4 against 1, and still he managed to counterkill one. But it should end now. The alien power has been exhausted, and it was impossible for Jiang Fan to replicate the previous tactics. The Giant King of Sight and the Giant King of the Green Star broke free from the Frost origin, staring at the headless corpse of the Giant King of Light. All stared angrily. Along with the Giant King of Frost, they all swung their wolf fang clubs. At this time, Jiang Fan's black dragon armor was on the verge of breaking. The 5 magnetic Yuan mountain was damaged. How could it block even 1 wolf fang club from the Giant King? Not to mention, there were 3 wolf fang clubs. The powerful pressure caused the space to tremble, even limiting Jiang Fan's spatial teleportation. Trying invisibility, yet he was surrounded by the skin fragments of Princess Zaijiang. By this time, most of his methods were nearly exhausted. Only the determination to fight to the death remained. He locked onto the Giant King of Frost, wielding the 3-color divine rainbow, directly slashing forward. Crack! The wolf fang club of the Giant King of Frost was split into 2 on the spot, and the momentum of the 3-color divine rainbow didn't diminish, heading towards its 20-zhang tall body. As for the wolf fang clubs attacking from the left and right, Jiang Fan completely ignored them, only controlling the 3-color divine rainbow to charge at the Giant King of Frost. The rebellious guy saw Jiang Fan with a look of going to his death, biting his jaw, small claws stepping on Jiang Fan's shoulder, leaping up. Facing the left wolf fang club, taking it with his chest, thinking, "Little vampire, I am not like you. I am a gentleman who repays grievances with virtue." Crack. The talent of 100% chest-breaking rocks activated again, smashing the incoming Wolf Fang Club to pieces. But the right Wolf Fang Club mercilessly swung down. When Jiang Fan was covered by the shadow of the Wolf Fang Club, a mocking voice wafted over. "How could such excitement be short of me?" The next instant, the giant king of the Green Star, attacking Jiang Fan, suddenly went blind in front. Vision snatched away. The Wolf Fang Club in his hand scraped past Jiang Fan's arm, the terrifying force bursting his arm into a mist of blood. Jiang Fan groaned in pain, no time to think more. The three-colored divine rainbow slashed fiercely towards the true body of the giant king of Frost. Frost origin? The giant king of Frost's pupil shrank slightly. Immediately activating the origin, countless frosts froze the surroundings. The power of the incoming three-colored divine rainbow significantly reduced, but when landing on him, it still erupted with terrifying power. From neck to belly, he was split open. Innards being cut into pieces burst out with blood. Jiang Fan's eyes shone brightly, biting the anti-void spirit pill in his mouth, manipulated the three-colored divine rainbow again. Strike while he is ill, take his life. But just then, a green glow emanated from his wound. The deadly injury, healing at a speed visible to the naked eye, comparable to heavenly clothes' divine water. The rescued giant king of Frost quickly retreated, joining the giant king of Sight and the giant king of the Green Star. The giant king of the Green Star, a star on his forehead, spun rapidly, gazing at Jiang Fan with cold eyes. "Unless you can kill in one blow, you won't kill anyone in front of me?" Jiang Fan felt deeply regretful, almost managed to kill another giant king. Only now did he have time to look at the person who took action, fixed his eyes, and was greatly startled. "Ming Yi, it's you." He had no good impression of this old guy from Black Cloud Village. Tricked them into infiltrating the Black Sun Royal Court's treasury, opened the hidden chamber, took the bloodthirsty ghost eye, and left them to escape alone, causing them all to be captured by the giant kings. Unexpectedly, after 3 months, he had successfully been promoted to Asura King thanks to the bloodthirsty ghost eye. Minjai village chief crossed his arms in front, smilingly. "Jiang Daoyu, long time no see, getting more remarkable." He glanced at the headless corpse of the giant king on the ground, profound apprehension in his eyes. Fighting 4 giant kings alone, yet managed to kill one. If not for a life giant king with healing ability among them, it would have been 2 killed. Such strength, truly terrifying. Jiang Fan remained composed. "You still have the nerve to come to Taikang State?" Ming Yi awkwardly held hands to salute. "I'm here to make amends, aren't I?" He instantaneously moved to Jiang Fan's side, gazing at the 3 giant kings, said, "I can hold one for you." Actually, he was willing to come because after descending to the lower realm, he had visited the island where the Asura clan was settled, found that the people of Black Cloud Village were treated well, and Central Earth had not treated them harshly. Only then was he willing to lend a hand to Taikang State, aligning with them in a unified front. Seeing this, the true word Venerable, Pingshan Bodhisattva, Heart Demon Venerable, and Jian Lanjiang, who were fighting in the distance, all lifted spirits. There were reinforcements. With 2 against 3, finally a glimmer of hope. Jiang Fan's eyes also shone brightly, sweeping away fatigue, battle intent rising. "All right. Hold 1 giant king, and our grievances will be written off." Ming Yi laughed heartily, locking his gaze on the giant king of Sight with a vigorous battle intent. "I belong to the Heavenly Eye Asura clan, and you are the giant king of the Sight origin. Then let's have a showdown." The giant king of Sight, having suffered earlier, face full of anger, just activated the origin against him. Ming Yi, with a wicked smile, also activated the Asura king's talent. The giant king of Frost's face was also filled with icy cold. "Wang Chengxiao." His forehead origin rotated, about to activate the origin power again. The life giant king at the side opened his mouth, spitting out a long tongue, aiming for the heart. Jiang Fan burst into laughter, a flick of his sleeve, scattered ashes, loudly proclaimed, "I wish the giant king of Frost to remain unmoved like a mountain." A massive consumption of space-time dust. A force of unknown origin descended, enveloping the giant king of Frost. His complexion changed dramatically. He tried to resist, but soon he couldn't move as Jiang Fan wished. A 3-colored divine rainbow, with the instantaneous movement of space power, directly appeared in his abdomen. As the power of the wish disappeared, his pupils contracted sharply, exclaiming, "Life Giant King!" before the Life Giant King could react. With a squelching sound, the three-colored divine rainbow sliced through his stomach and from bottom to top, rapidly slashed towards his head, intending to split him in two. Fortunately, the life giant king reacted quickly, decisively giving up the attempt to kill Jiang Fan, instead activating the domain to save his companion. In the next moment, the wound of the giant king of frost was completely healed, including the three-colored divine rainbow being healed within his body, unable to escape. The giant king of frost felt lingering fear. This was already the second time, nearly being split in half by Jiang Fan. He was thoroughly enraged, forehead origin activated, shouted, "You die for me?" An enormous ice spike formed by condensed frost shot towards Jiang Fan. Jiang Fan remained silent, holding the divine wood, an instantaneous spatial assault towards the life giant king. "You're the one who deserves to die the most," completely with a posture of perishing together with the life giant king. The life giant king sneered, "A fool seeking one's own death." As Jiang Fan approached, he was already killed by the frost giant king's origin. In an instant, the ice spike mercilessly pierced Jiang Fan's back. The great spike of ice penetrated his chest and back, the immense inertia even pushing Jiang Fan forward, threatening to tear him in two from the chest. The life giant king sighed, suddenly feeling bored. Such a cunning enemy had died so foolishly, truly not satisfying. But Princess Zaijiang gazed skyward, letting out a powerless sigh. In the end, you cannot outplay him. The next moment, a dull sound emanated from the body of the frost giant king. The life giant king was stunned, looked up, and the giant ice spike that should have pierced Jiang Fan's chest was bizarrely stuck in the body of the frost giant king. His internal organs were all impaled. On the tip of the ice, a beating heart was pierced, blood flowing freely. The frost giant king was dumbfounded, gazing blankly at the familiar ice spike in front of him. Looking back at Jiang Fan, who had just had his chest torn apart, he was completely unharmed. Why is this happening? No time to think, feeling life slipping away, he hurriedly said, "Quick, save me." The life giant king awoke as if from a dream, hurriedly activating the life origin. At that moment, Jiang Fan used the push of the ice spike to reach right in front of him. The divine wood in his hand struck fiercely at him. The life giant king shouted, "Get lost!" His long tongue extended from his mouth, stabbing at Jiang Fan's brow. Jiang Fan's eyes flashed brilliantly, and the divine wood struck fiercely against the long tongue. "Ah!" The life giant king immediately experienced an extreme pain. The long tongue twitched and retracted. The original star on his forehead stopped spinning, clutching his head. He screamed in pain repeatedly. "What did you do to me?" the life giant king yelled. The answer he received was Jiang Fan's ruthless blow. No, it was 2 blows, 3 blows, 4 blows. With each successive blow, the pain increased exponentially. The life giant king writhed in agony, almost losing consciousness, as the shrieking voice of the frost giant king reached his ears. "Heal me quickly, I'm..." Almost. Finished, the life giant king came to his senses, summoning the original star from his forehead. But he did not heal the frost giant king. Instead, he healed himself. A green light flashed within him. The frost giant king, waiting for rescue, was enraged, mouth agape, cursing, "You, useless, scoundrel." Thud, his massive body fell heavily to the ground, struggling as his breath faded. At this point, his insides began to churn. A 3-colored divine rainbow slashed open his belly again, splitting him from bottom to top, including the original star in his skull. The frost giant king ended. Jiang Fan raised his hand, summoned. The 3-colored divine rainbow decomposed into 3 top-grade spirit swords, returning to his side. On the hilt of the tall, evil sword, a piece of ice clung. Inside was a heart-shaped copper lock. Precisely the luck transfer lock. Jiang Fan teleported not only the 3-colored divine rainbow into the frost giant king. He grasped the evil sword, looked indifferently at the rolling, struggling life giant king, and said coldly, "Can't kill anyone in front of you? What if you yourself are about to die?" Human nature is complex, let alone the ancient giants filled with negative emotions. Also on the verge of death, would the life giant king save others? Sadly, the life giant king's origin doesn't heal the soul-level damage caused by the divine wood. He remains in unbearable pain. If he had saved the frost giant king, with the frost giant king restored, Jiang Fan would have been hard-pressed to defeat. With the frost giant king present, Jiang Fan also found it hard to kill the life giant king. It could only be said that he made a decision consistent with his nature, but deadly. Whack! With a swing, the sword fell. The evil sword severed his head. Next, the long sword lifted, plucking off the green star from above, grasping it in his hand. Then one soul-shocking stab after another penetrated it, exterminating the remnant souls within. He killed so many giant kings, leaving only the stars of the Soul Giant King and Life Giant King. These two are of great use. What a bunch of fools! Princess Zaijiang clenched her fists, pounding her thigh hard. She watched helplessly as the sure-win 4-on-1 scenario was finally turned around by Jiang Fan. The feeling of falling from the clouds into hell left her disheartened. Who can actually take down Jiang Fan? Jiang Fan glanced at her, said indifferently, "It's not over yet, it's too early to lament." Meanwhile, Heart Demon Venerable fiercely battled with a wood giant king. Though thunder restrained wood, Heart Demon Venerable had exhausted the heavenly thunder stone, only relying on the thunder power within to contend with the giant king, unable to gain absolute advantage. The two sides were at a stalemate, neither able to overcome the other. At this point, the sound of breaking came. It was Jiang Fan. He urged on the three-colored divine rainbow, sweeping murderously over the battlefield above. "I'm done fighting and you haven't finished yet," Jiang Fan teased. Heart Demon Venerable was overjoyed. Jiang Fan had already slain 2 giant kings so quickly. He was ecstatic beyond comparison. A great victory was in sight. "Quickly help me kill this wood giant king. His origin is tricky, able to instantly make the earth sprout lots of wood, merging into one of them. I'm almost suffocated fighting this." Jiang Fan stroked his chin. "Is that so?" Gazing at the ground full of bare wood, he squinted, decisively activating the earth origin. The earth suddenly rolled like waves, one after another wood toppled, except for the one standing in the center, perfectly upright. "It's him!" Heart Demon Venerable's keen eyes decisively slashed the undying blade onto the wood. Hiss. The wood exploded, revealing the massive body of the wood giant king. He lifted his head, glared resentfully at Jiang Fan, activated his origin again. More long wood shot up from the ground. The wood giant king disappeared, evidently hiding among them again. But the next moment a tragic scream echoed. One of the wood began shaking violently. Looking closely, the ground where the wood stood collapsed continuously, exposing a giant cannibal flower. It bit onto the wood, chewing vigorously, stuffing it into its mouth. The wood twisted, revealing the body. It was precisely the wood giant king. His legs caught in the cannibal flower's mouth, causing him to struggle in shock and anger. The cannibal flower was naturally the fixed seed. Underneath was the fixed seed's hunting ground, apt for dealing with the wood giant king. Jiang Fan's eyes flashed brilliantly, decisively deploying the three-colored divine rainbow. Heart Demon Venerable cooperated skillfully. A 1,000-foot undying blade pierced through his chest, suppressing him, preventing evasion. The outcome was foreseeable. With a sound, the wood giant king's head was split open. The fixed seed panicked, fearing the food would be snatched away, opened wide, swallowed the entire 20-foot giant king whole. Visibly, a giant king-shaped object quickly slid down inside its vine. The fixed seed burped contently. In one day, consuming 2 giant kings truly felt like a feast. It transformed back into a small seed. Jiang Fan raised his hand to summon, returning it to the breath soil to cultivate further. This seed sure gets more handy with use. Twice it proved invaluable. Heart Demon Venerable looked envious, said, "You have so many treasures. Do you want me to help keep some?" Jiang Fan glanced at him. At this point, a groan sounded. It was Jiang Lanjiang flying back with the battle corpse. Half his body smashed into bloody mud, life almost extinguished. Jiang Fan's expression changed, spoke solemnly. "Time to settle accounts with these beastly armies of the central tribe. The death of the heavenly listening bodhisattva, they must pay the price." Demon Venerable was the first to perform instantaneous movement, catching the Wolf Fang Club that was delivering a fatal blow to Jiang Lanjiang with an undying blade. Jiang Fan quickly fed Jiang Lanjiang 3 heavenly clothes, divine waters. The half-damaged body began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Jiang Daoyu, I've been dragging you down." Jiang Lanjiang was full of shame. Since the war began, he hadn't managed to slay a single battle corpse and had repeatedly fallen into crisis. Now, he was saved from the brink of death by Jiang Fan, making him feel truly embarrassed. Jiang Fan said, "Jiang clan leader, you speak too harshly. When faced with such hardship, having the courage to stand up and resist the giant king is already a heroic act unparalleled in the world. Moreover, you managed to successfully hold off the giant king twice. Without that contribution, the course of the battle might have needed to be rewritten. Come, let's continue fighting." Jiang Lanjiang reignited his fighting spirit and nodded heavily. The two of them charged towards Heart Demon Venerable, striking at the Giant King together. 3 against 1, the outcome was obvious. Within 5 rounds, this Giant King was completely destroyed in body and spirit. No time to think, they immediately turned to the Sand Giant King's location. At this moment, the Sand Giant King was being controlled by Pingshan Bodhisattva, who was divided in focus, making its combat strength naturally inferior to a true Giant King. When they arrived, the Sand Giant King had already had its head pierced, and a large piece of its star was shattered, with its power already exhausted. Taking advantage of the Sand Giant King's continued entanglement with the opponent, the 3 joined forces and swiftly slew this Giant King as well. Then the 3 of them proceeded to Mingyi's location. Both possessed the talent of sight, utilizing eye-related techniques. Since Mingyi Asura King had just undergone a breakthrough, their strength was inferior to that of the Eye Giant King. After a fierce battle, the injuries were severe, especially with both eyes scorched, rendering them blind and unable to hold out for long. Jiang Lanjiang, controlling the battle corpse, replaced Mingyi Asura King. Jiang Fan tossed him a heavenly clothes divine water, saying, "You didn't run away this time, well done. We're even now." If he had acted like before in the heavenly realm, running at the first sign of trouble, the Eye Giant King could have joined any other battlefield. The outcome would have been the last straw to break the camel's back. Mingyi took the heavenly clothes divine water, restoring his sight, and chuckled. "This is because there's no way out. My clansmen are also in Taikang state." Though he said this, he decisively joined the siege. 4 against 1, the outcome is not hard to imagine. In a roar of unwillingness, the Eye Giant King's body was blasted apart, and its star was shattered. At this point, all 17 one-star Giant Kings were annihilated. Only the 3-star Space Giant King, 2-star Water, and Fire Giant Kings were still resisting stubbornly. "How on earth are you fighting?" The 3-star Space Giant King noticed this scene and could hardly believe his eyes. 7 against 4, and yet they were completely wiped out. He knew the 5-star Giant King wouldn't spare him. As an elite of the Central Tribe, failing so miserably was a disgrace he couldn't survive. But now was not the time to consider the consequences, because the current situation was extremely dire. He could very possibly fall here. Should Pingshan Bodhisattva and True Word Venerable free up their hands, along with 4 heavenly person decline-level forces from Jiang Fan, working together, even if he survived, he would be skinned. He immediately ordered in a deep voice, "Fire Giant King, Water Giant King, hold on. Once the great wine sacrifice is blasted to pieces by the 9-day Giant Emperor, the king will show up. You all must persevere." Water Giant King gritted his teeth and said, "Yes, my lord." The Fire Giant King's eyes twitched, a bit frantic. Others might be manageable, but that Wang Xianxia was too brutal. He watched as Jiang Fan alone slaughtered 4 Giant Kings, using mysterious and numerous techniques. Who knows if he has even more terrifying tricks? What made him especially apprehensive was that, after observing the Fire Giant King and Water Giant King's situation, Jiang Fan decisively targeted him. First, eliminate the Fire Giant King. The reason for choosing to kill him first was, firstly, that Jiang Fan had noticed the panic in the Fire Giant King's eyes, indicating a lack of resolute character, creating an opportunity. Secondly, how long Pingshan Bodhisattva's great vow could suppress the Fire Giant King had to be questioned. While he still had the strength to suppress the Fire Giant King, they had to kill the Fire Giant King first. Heart Demon Venerable and others realized Jiang Fan's concerns and immediately took action. He and Mingyi Asura King instantly moved over to launch an attack. Jiang Fan and Jiang Lanjiang followed, launching their attacks simultaneously. Instantly, the Fire Giant King was besieged by 5 people. The Fire Giant King gritted his teeth and painfully smashed the pouch at his waist, activating a stone origin, turning his body to stone. Bam 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 5 blasts shook him to the point of tasting blood, but failed to inflict lethal damage. This was the origin he had exchanged with the 2-star Stone Giant King before setting out. Unexpectedly, he used it at this critical moment. The 3-star Space Giant King was slightly encouraged, saying, "Good, just hold on like this. The turning point will not take long to come." Jiang Fan secretly frowned. He had witnessed the strength of the Stone Giant King. Once the origin was activated, the defense was impeccably strong at the same level. It was very difficult for them to take down the Fire Giant King in a short amount of time. What made Jiang Fan's eye twitch was that he keenly noticed that among the 16-leaf golden lotus under Pingshan Bodhisattva, one leaf's glow was dimmer than the other 15. The great vow indeed had limitations. Jiang Fan's heart was slightly anxious. If Pingshan Bodhisattva's cultivation fell, there would be no one to suppress the 2-star fire giant king. If he freed up his hands, it might sweep away the advantage Jiang Fan and his allies risked their lives to obtain. What to do? Suddenly he was inspired and suddenly stretched out his hand to take out a handful of breath soil, shouting loudly, "Use all your strength to hold the fire giant king. I will kill him with breath soil." What? The fire giant king's face twitched. He had seen with his own eyes how 4 giant kings who consumed the flesh and blood infused with breath soil swelled and exploded. "Wang Xiao, don't try to scare me. I'm a 2-star giant king. The breath soil might not work on me," the fire giant king barked with false bravado. Jiang Fan flipped his palm again, revealing 2 stars. They were the same size and pulsated in size. The fire giant king's body trembled. "Shape giant king, did he die at your hands?" Jiang Fan smirked. So this giant king who could freely swell and shrink was called the shape giant king. He could swell his body so well, yet he couldn't escape the effects of breath soil. "I wonder if you can survive." "Do it." Pingshan Bodhisattva, Heart Demon Venerable, Mingyi Asura King, and the battle corpse all flew over together, aiming to control him with their flesh. The fire giant king's face showed panic. In his huge vertical eye, the pupils wobbled violently from side to side. After a brief struggle and calculation, he decisively activated his origin, spewing intense flames. Then, he kicked his legs and ran. The 3-star space giant king's expression changed dramatically, hurriedly shouting, "Come back quickly. You fell for Wang Xiao's trick. With your strength and the stone origin, they can't possibly control you." The fighting spirit, once dissipated, is hard to gather again. The fire giant king was already scared off. How could he take risks again? Moreover, giants are beings embodying all negative emotions, their nature extremely selfish and self-serving. How could they fight for their companions? Without looking back, he quickly disappeared from the battlefield. "Damn it!" The 3-star space giant king was furious. Clearly, they still had a chance to hold out till the end, but the hateful fire giant king couldn't withstand Jiang Fan's intimidation. Jiang Fan let out a slight sigh of relief. He wasn't sure if he and his group could control the 2-star giant king and allow him to place the breath soil. And the wish paper. Jiang Fan quietly glanced at the space storage device, once filled with thousands of space-time dust. Now only a few dozen left. He couldn't help but smile wryly. He could no longer use the wish paper. Fortunately, the fire giant king was scared away. Pingshan Bodhisattva spoke up. "Let's quickly assist true word donor." He glanced at the golden lotus beneath him. Its 16 leaves had turned to 15. Jiang Fan's eyes sharpened. Locking onto the water giant king, he commanded, "Strike!" The water giant king was utterly frustrated. With the fire giant king gone, he was left to face 2 heavenly human 2 declines and 4 heavenly human 1 declines alone. 6 against 1? He wasn't a freak like Wang Xiao. How could he possibly survive? Feeling a chill on his scalp, he decisively shook off True Word Venerable and shouted, "Get out of my way!" True Word Venerable, battered and bruised, was fuming and refused to let him go. "Forbid true words?" Just as he was about to activate his original star and transform into water to escape, the original star paused for a moment. It was this brief delay that allowed Pingshan Bodhisattva to arrive on the golden lotus, enveloping him in an unmatched Buddha light. Following closely, Heart Demon Venerable, Asura King Mingyi, Jiang Fan, and Jian Lanjiang arrived in succession. 6 divinity transformation realms' divine power treasure techniques struck upon him together. In disbelief, the water giant king shouted, "Master, save me!" Rumble. His plea for help got lost in the deafening explosions. His over 20-jang-tall body was blown apart, shattered into pieces. The bone at his forehead with 2 embedded stars fell before True Word Venerable, who unceremoniously stomped the 2 stars to dust. "Let that curb my magical treasure." She wore a satisfied smile, having endured great frustration fighting the water giant king. Sigh with a long, deep sigh, a wave of extreme fatigue washed over her. After closing off in seclusion for a month and rushing to 2 battlefields without rest, she had been injured by the 3-star space giant king earlier. Feeling somewhat overwhelmed, her body swayed slightly. Then, a strong hand held her by the shoulder, let her lean against him, and presented a piece of heavenly clothes, divine water. "Can you still hold on?" Jiang Fan asked gently. True Word Venerable struggled for a bit, but seeing Jiang Fan's bloodshot eyes and indescribable deep fatigue, she stopped moving. In truth, the hardest part of the battle was Jiang Fan's burden. Every battle was a near-death experience, fraught with peril. She felt a pang of heartache and a swell of courage. She couldn't become a burden to Jiang Fan. Lowering her head, she brought her red lips to Jiang Fan's palm, swallowing the heavenly clothes divine water, and said, "Let's keep fighting." The soft and moist sensation on his palm gave Jiang Fan an unusual feeling inside. Shaking his head, he dispelled his miscellaneous thoughts. Now wasn't the time for such considerations. He looked off into the distance at the clash between the misfortune god Steel and the three-star space giant king. The might of the three-star space giant king was undeniable. He alone could suppress all six of them. Yet, against the misfortune god Steel, the three-star space giant king seemed powerless. The opponent was an indestructible magic artifact of a sage. His space technique had very limited effects and couldn't inflict the slightest harm. In contrast, the Steel emitted a powerful suppressive force, often battering him so that his insides churned. More fatally, the Steel continually released misfortune, and the longer they fought, the more misfortune he accumulated. As a result, 9 out of 10 attacks against the Steel missed, whereas the Steel's attacks on him turned from minor injuries into major ones. Now, Pingshan Bodhisattva and True Word Venerable were free to act. Previously, their attacks were completely ignored by the three-star space giant king because they couldn't hurt him at all. But with misfortune clinging, things were different. Seeing them surround him, the three-star space giant king's expression turned grim. He feared he would perish here today. "Wait, don't attack yet." After a moment of struggle, he suddenly spoke. Jiang Fan warily watched him. "Do you still wish to surrender?" The three-star space giant king glanced at the Steel, then at Jiang Fan, realizing this group was led by Jiang Fan. He addressed Jiang Fan, "Should I call you Wang Qingseo or Jiang Fan?" "Either," Jiang Fan replied coldly. "If you have any last words, say them quickly." The three-star giant king spoke indifferently. "Let's stick with Wang Qingseo, given this name is renowned in the heavenly realm." "Wang Qingseo, I want to make a deal with you." Jiang Fan frowned. "Deal? With a blood feud as vast as the sea between us, is there any deal to be made?" The blood of heavenly listening Bodhisattva hadn't even dried yet. The three-star space giant king said, "Indeed, a deal can be made. Because you and I now have a common enemy. The 5-star giant king, my superior, the netherworld king dispatched by the central tribe." Jiang Fan's eyes shifted slightly. "A common enemy." Glancing at the battlefield strewn with giant kings' corpses, the 3-star space giant king continued. "I was sent by the netherworld king to Taikang State, tasked with exterminating all divinity transformation realms. Now, the mission is incomplete, and we've suffered near total annihilation. Given the netherworld king's nature, he won't spare my life. But I haven't lived enough. I don't want to die yet, so I want to betray the netherworld king, betray the ancient giants, and no longer serve them. Do you understand what I mean?" Jiang Fan wasn't surprised. Giants are brutal beings, killing their kind without batting an eye. After suffering such a disastrous defeat, the 3-star space giant king would have no good outcome. If he continued fighting Jiang Fan and the others, he'd die if he lost, and even if he won and returned to report, he would still die. So why continue fighting? However, Jiang Fan couldn't accept it and said solemnly, "To become allies with those who murdered the Bodhisattva." "I cannot do it." Yet Pingshan Bodhisattva calmly said, "Heavenly listening Bodhisattva would want Master Jiang to agree." He looked at the 3-star space giant king, neither angry nor joyful. The Bodhisattva did not die by any hand. He passed away as a sacrifice for the world. There is no need to harbor hatred toward anyone for him. Jiang Fan remained silent. This was a perspective beyond the human clan's stance, gazing lovingly over all beings. Buddhist path monks often possess this understanding. Moreover, if Jiang Fan died by a giant king's hand, with knowledge from below, he would surely hope for the living to consider themselves more. Not to avenge him, especially not to sacrifice themselves for it. However, when it came to Jiang Fan's own need for vengeance, he couldn't let go of hatred. Seeing this, True Word Venerable said, "Heavenly listening Bodhisattva is a member of Buddhism. Whether to reconcile or not, let Pingshan Bodhisattva decide." Pingshan Bodhisattva put his palms together. "Very well. Space Giant King, what deal do you want to make?" The 3-star Space Giant King's eyes glinted sharply. "Very simple. I seek refuge in the Hell Realm. In return, I'll reveal the identity of the traitor in Central Earth collaborating with us from the Heavenly Realm." Realm, indeed, there is no longer a place in the heavenly realm for the space giant king. The central Earth realm is even less able to accommodate this man-eating monster. Only in the Hell realm can he hide and survive. However, is there a passage between the central Earth realm and the Hell realm? Jiang Fan raised his eyebrows slightly and asked, "We cannot send you to the Hell realm." The three-star space giant king chuckled. "Don't pretend, I know you have a continent in Taikang State. Deep within the continent is a subterranean world opened by the Asura clan over 1,000 years ago. Passing through there will lead you to the Hell realm." The old site of the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion. Jiang Fan was secretly surprised. Even the three-star space giant king knew about this. The traitor from Central Earth had indeed leaked a lot of secrets. However, why didn't the traitor tell the three-star space giant king that the continent has a stern iron law? That is, divinity transformation is banned, and Sage must stop at the border. This iron law targets even its own people. How can it exempt a monster from the heavenly realm? If the three-star space giant king dares to set foot there, he is surely doomed. Everyone began to comprehend the situation. It seems this three-star space giant king lacks awareness of the continental taboo. "Well, are you willing to complete the transaction?" Seeing everyone silent, the three-star space giant king said threateningly. "If we cannot conclude the deal, then we're doomed to fight to the death. Perhaps I will die, but I guarantee to take at least 2 of you down with me." As one of the most dangerous space giant kings among the giant kings, he indeed had the audacity to say this. A fierce battle would certainly end in mutual destruction. The best way is to trick him onto the continent and let the taboo kill him. Pingshan Bodhisattva nodded lightly. "I shall decide to agree to this deal." The three-star space giant king did not sigh in relief but looked at Jiang Fan. "What about you? What's your stance?" Without hesitation, Jiang Fan replied with chilling intent, "Dream on." "You killed the heavenly listening Bodhisattva and still want to leave alive. Dream on." He couldn't appear too eager, because he had just aggressively attacked the space giant king, and agreeing right after would raise suspicions. The space giant king would surely be suspicious of the continent's integrity. Sure enough, upon hearing this, the three-star space giant king, rather than being worried, felt much more at ease. He was indeed testing Jiang Fan's attitude, to judge if the continent held any unknown traps for him. Fortunately, Jiang Fan's resistance suggested no problems with the continent. He smiled lightly. "I am trading with Buddhism, it's none of your business. For safety's sake, I need to inform you about the trader's intelligence once we reach the subterranean world." "No problem, right?" Pingshan Bodhisattva nodded. "Good. I will go with the misfortune god steal along with you to the continent. If you break the agreement, we will make our move against you again." Jiang Fan was furious, yelling, "Pingshan, you damned bald donkey. How can you allow someone who killed the heavenly listening Bodhisattva to leave? You agree, but I don't agree." Pingshan Bodhisattva shook his head, uttering calmly, "Space Giant King, let's go. Don't bother with him." He and the misfortune god Steel advanced, protecting the three-star Space Giant King, heading toward the fire worship sex transmission array. "Stop!" Jiang Fan roared, unleashing the three-color divine rainbow toward the three-star Space Giant King. The true word Venerable held Jiang Fan down, dispersing the array, saying, "Stop messing around, let them go." Heart Demon Venerable also arrived, saying, "You ain't gonna win against them." Jian Lanjiang also intervened. "Jiang Daoyu, calm down. Let him leave and we can avoid a death battle, everyone is happy." Jiang Fan scolded, "You damned bastards. Let go or I will kill you all too." He broke free from the grip of True Word Venerable and began a fight with several people. This scene made the Asura king Ming Yi stunned. What's going on? Why are the Divinity Transformation Realm members of Taikang State suddenly in a civil conflict? Who should he help? The three-star giant king glanced back at this scene and chuckled. "You all take your time fighting. I'll take my leave first." With these words, he vanished into the transmission hall alongside Pingshan Bodhisattva and the misfortune god Steel. As the spatial ripples dissipated, the fierce fighting stopped simultaneously, and Jiang Fan's murderous aura quickly dispersed. He chuckled. "All finished up, all finished up." True Word Venerable looked at the sleeve cut by Jiang Fan's sword and rolled his eyes. "You really put on a show? I thought you fell out with us." Jiang Fan laughed heartily. "If it's not realistic enough, how could we deceive the Space Giant King? They are all sly characters one after another." Heart Demon Venerable chuckled. "Luckily, you're on our side. With your scheming talent, if you were on the Giant King's side, the great wine sacrifice would gnash its teeth with hate." Jian Lanjiang couldn't help but laugh heartily. "No wonder the Giant Emperor specifically wanted to kill you, Jiang Fan. If I were the giant emperor, I would have to kill you myself. You're really too hateful. Hey. Mingyi Asura King was extremely perplexed, completely unsure of what was happening. What on earth are you playing at? Jiang Fan glanced at him and said, let them explain to you. I've got to go chase down the 3-star space giant king, make sure to trick him onto the continent. With that, he quickly used the space transmission array to pursue. True Word Venerable and the others were not idle, immediately assessing the fire worship sect situation. The recent battle among the Divinity Transformation Realm members had impacted the defenseless fire worship sect to some extent. True Word Venerable found Xian Land Ferry. Any casualties? Xian Land Ferry pointed to a hall nearby that had melted into a heap. Xian Land Ferry sighed. This hall was swept by the fire giant king's essence. 10 disciples hiding inside unfortunately perished. The hall was melted. The people inside could only be gone without a trace. True Word Venerable nodded. Take good care of their fellow disciples and friends. Compared with the severe loss of the first battle, these 10 casualties seemed insignificant. Fire Dragon Master said, another person sacrificed. One of the sect leader's true disciples, Lin Zhenyu, I saw him being swept by the water giant king's essence just now and likely in dire peril overall. Xian Land Fairy's eyes dimmed. Lin Zhenyu was in the 9th layer of core formation perfection. Being swept by the 2-star giant king's essence, how could he survive? Likely the body wouldn't be even found. But unexpectedly a voice shouted, Elders, I'm not dead. I'm still here. A Fire Dragon Master glanced sideways, seeing a drenched young man flying over clumsily from afar. You actually survived? Lin Zhenyu scratched his head. I got swept into the fire spring and then fainted. When I woke up, I found myself unharmed. Such a thing. Even True Word Venerable was amazed. A core formation realm survived the essence of the 2-star giant king? Miracle is an understatement. With a flash in her eyes, she instantaneously moved to the fire spring, looking at the rolling magma deep into the earth. With a thoughtful look, she spoke. If I remember correctly, this fire spring was a legacy of a battle between the owner of the Jade Paper Heavenly Book and a giant emperor, right? Could it be that there's something beneath the fire spring that can neutralize the essence of the water giant king? After a brief contemplation, True Word Venerable turned and said, I will go down and investigate. Contact me if there's an emergency. With those words, holding the Phoenix Feather 9 Flames fan, she leapt into the terrifying fire spring. Heart Demon Venerable glanced at the fire spring, realizing that there might be a significant treasure inside. But on second thought, even a 2-star giant king's essence could be dissolved by it, representing extreme danger. He, experiencing a heavenly person decline, without a fire Dao cultivation technique or heavy treasures for protection, would only be courting trouble by going in. Let us protect True Word Venerable. If she can bring back the treasure, it will only benefit our Taikang state, he said. He sat cross-legged above the fire spring, closed his eyes, and adjusted his breathing. Jian Lanjiang glanced at the members of the fire worship sect and said, Xian Land Fairy, Yun Huo, you should relocate the fire worship sect members to the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion as soon as possible. The fire worship sect cannot stay here for long. The fire worship sect was too close to the connecting sky-black pillar. The Great Wine Sacrifice and the Giant Emperor's battle could break out at any time and affect this place. Xian Land Fairy cupped her hands and said, Yes, Senior. The protective great array of the fire worship sect had already failed, losing its ability to protect the people, so they must move. Knight Asura King took responsibility for keeping watch, surveying the heavens and earth in all directions, to prevent the sudden return of that 2-star fire giant king. Unintentionally, when he scanned over the long staircase in front of the fire worship sect's mountain gate, he found a woman sitting silently, hugging her knees on the steps. Her eyes were hollow and vacant, her eyes reddened, as if she had gone through something sorrowful. Her appearance was extraordinarily stunning, to the extent that even someone of his old age couldn't help but feel moved. However, her body seemed somewhat transparent, and her state appeared somewhat strange. Friend Jian, who is that? Asked Knight Asura King in surprise. Jian Lanjiang replied, She was the Tao companion of Dharma Seal Vajra before he returned to secular life. For the common people, Dharma Seal Vajra entered Buddhism and achieved bodhisattvahood. Thus, she became all alone. O Knight Asura King nodded in understanding. Dharma Seal Vajra's action, though noble for the common people, seemed heartless to the woman before them. He sighed and then focused on surveying the surroundings. To observe the distant heavens and earth, He activated the talent of his eyes, revealing the essence of everything in his sight. When he swept across Yue, Mingyi suddenly froze and then trembled all over, shivering as he said, "It's the remnant soul of the Asura Emperor. Moreover, from the Yaomei Asura clan. But how could an Asura Emperor from the Yaomei clan be caught up in emotion? Unless..." As if sensing his probing, Yue raised her head and looked at him across the space. The sound of a distant thunder seemed to echo coldly in Mingyi's mind. "Mind your own business!" Night Asura King shuddered and quickly diverted his gaze, feeling uneasy. Did this remnant soul of Asura Emperor come to Central Earth with some intention? Elsewhere. White Horse Temple. The misfortune god Steel, Pingshan Bodhisattva, and the three-star space giant king transmitted over. The three-star space giant king stepped out of the transmission hall, surveying White Horse Temple with a chuckle. The spirit vein of the #1 divine sect in Taikang State is nothing remarkable. It pales in comparison to the heavenly realm. I really don't know where all the resources from the continent taken from the heavenly realm 1,000 years ago have gone. Pingshan Bodhisattva pondered deeply. From the visions of Jiang Fan's journey to the heavenly realm, it was obvious that the resources there vastly surpassed those of Central Earth. Even ordinary bees, nourished by the resources of the heavenly realm, were as large as calves. The continent of Central Earth originated from the heavenly realm, yet the resources it manifests are less than 1% of the original. Where did all the other resources go? This is truly a question worthy of investigation. The three-star space giant king suddenly noticed something, his gaze turning towards the underground of White Horse Temple with a look of surprise. "A princess of the Dark Shura clan. She's actually in your White Horse Temple. The Dark Shura clan has offered a reward for the 5-star giant king to ascend the giant emperor rank, searching the entire heavenly realm for her." A flicker of heat and greed filled his eyes. If he handed this princess over to the Netherworld King, could he avoid death? At that moment, the array within the transmission hall was activated, beams of spatial light shot up into the sky. In the light beams, Jiang Fan's aura appeared and disappeared. The 3-star space giant king was suddenly taken aback. Jiang Fan had actually chased after them. With Jiang Fan present, and along with the misfortune god Steel and Tianping Bodhisattva, taking the Dark Clan princess would be difficult. Additionally, it might disrupt the transaction between the two sides, leading to being besieged again by the powerhouses of Taikang State. He glared at the arriving Jiang Fan with secret resentment. "Troublesome fellow, if not for the misfortune god Steel by the side, I'd definitely slaughter you." He stepped forth, crossing the vast sea, guided by Pingshan Bodhisattva heading towards the continent. Vaguely he heard Jiang Fan's angry shout, "Do not leave!" He smirked and continued on his way, neither fast nor slow. A few 2-hour periods later, they crossed the vast sea. A coastline came into view. Pingshan Bodhisattva said, "That is the continent. Continue south and you'll find the underground world you mentioned." He and the misfortune god Steel slowed their pace. They dared not accompany the 3-star space giant king onto the continent, lest they be instantly killed. The 3-star space giant king cast a suspicious glance at the two, saying, "Why have you slowed down?" Pingshan Bodhisattva's heart skipped a beat. Truly, for someone who grew into a 3-star giant king among giants, he was exceedingly cautious. Without a second thought, he said, "I sensed Master Jiang's aura. He is still relentless in pursuit. If he continues to persist in this manner, he could hinder you in the underground world, making it difficult for you to enter the Hell Realm successfully." Hearing this, the 3-star space giant king also frowned lightly. What's in the underground world? He had no idea. If there were something like a transmission array, Jiang Fan's destruction of it could indeed impact his plans. Pingshan Bodhisattva continued, "I will stay behind to block him. You and the misfortune god Steel proceed." As he spoke, Jiang Fan, riding a thunder dragon, charged forward, face full of killing intent, hair standing on end. Without a word, he unleashed a towering, undying blade, slashing fiercely at the 3-star giant king. "Beast, you're not leaving alive." Pingshan Bodhisattva calmly raised his arm, waving a sheet of Buddha light to block the undying blade. "Master Jiang, turn back before it's too late. Don't be obstinate." Jiang Fan coldly replied, "You damn bald monk, are you worthy of heavenly listening Bodhisattva? Colluding with the devil, you can't distinguish right from wrong. I'll cleanse the Buddhist sect for you. 4 symbols." Brahma Saint True Spirit technique was unleashed, summoning 4 divine images to strike Pingshan Bodhisattva. Even a Buddha can be angered. Pingshan Bodhisattva's calm face transformed, displaying a wrathful expression. His cassia shattered, Buddha light infused his body, transforming him into a golden figure to clash fiercely. Bang, boom. Amidst the fierce explosions, the two engaged in a violent struggle. The misfortune god Steel said indifferently, "The longer the night, the more dreams. We should hurry to the underground world." The three-star space giant king smirked coldly. "You all continue to fight like dogs." He turned to leave with the misfortune god Steel. But as he looked towards the continent, a hunter's intuition built over the years caused a faint unease to arise within him. His eyes flickered, and he said to the misfortune god Steel, "Why don't you go to the continent first?" Giant King isn't as easy as imagined. Can Jiang Wuya go to the continent? The divinity transformation restriction is not limited to the physical body of the divinity transformation realm. I'm sure the soul of the divinity transformation realm is also banned from entering. If Jiang Wuya steps in, his divine soul will be immediately extinguished. At that time, not only his soul would be destroyed, but the three-star giant king would also realize it's a trap. But if he doesn't agree, the three-star giant king would also become suspicious. No matter how it's chosen, it's an unsolvable dead end. Is it unavoidable that both sides must risk destruction? Just at this moment, Jiang Fan suddenly moved, sending Pingshan Bodhisattva flying with a palm, then used the space origin instantaneous movement to the continent. Following this, he hurried deeper into the continent, shouting without looking back, "Want to go to the underground world?" "No way." Pingshan Bodhisattva steadied his form and said, "Not good, Master Jiang is going to destroy the underground world. Quick, catch up to him." He was the first to ride the golden lotus, chasing rapidly. The misfortune god Steel also hurriedly used instantaneous movement to pursue. The three-star space giant king smiled faintly. "Why the panic? He, a nascent soul realm, can surely get ahead of me, the space giant king." Upon seeing Jiang Fan ascend to the continent unharmed, his concerns eased. Without hesitation, he activated space origin. Heading southward swiftly, Jiang Fan's front space suddenly rippled. The massive figure of the three-star space giant king, 20-some meters tall, appeared out of thin air like a mountain. With arms crossed over his chest, he gazed down at Jiang Fan with a smirk. "Kid, do you have some misunderstanding about the three-star giant king? Do you really think that with your capability you can suppress me?" Jiang Fan paused, looked at the giant figure of the three-star giant king, and his long-hanging heart finally settled. He had successfully deceived him onto the continent. He. Jiang Fan laughed, coldly watching him like a dead man. The three-star space giant king's smile faded, and he suspiciously asked, "Why are you laughing?" Jiang Fan silently retreated, maintaining distance to avoid getting caught up later. The three-star space giant king felt a sense of unease. Had he been tricked? But didn't Pingshan Bodhisattva and the misfortune god Steel come to the continent with him? Wait, where are the two of them? The three-star space giant king's heart skipped a beat. Only now did he realize that Pingshan Bodhisattva and the misfortune god Steel hadn't appeared on the continent. The three had indeed moved instantaneously together, yet only he had directly moved onto the continent. As for those two, the three-star space giant king glanced around, realizing with a jolt. Those two were standing outside the coastline, not daring to step in. Panicking, he hastily engaged in space origin to escape from the continent. But it was too late. A silent rift opened behind his space. A gaze so terrifying shot from the rift. In horror, he discovered that the 3 space stars on his forehead had stopped rotating. What kind of formidable power could directly suppress the original stars of a 3-star giant king? He quickly turned around and saw the dark rift. Inside the rift, 2 golden eyes silently watched him. "Ah!" the 3-star giant king screamed in fright, as if a woodcutter encountering a nearby fierce tiger upon turning around in the mountains. The fear deep within his soul crashed over him. Bang! With just a glance, the 3 stars on his forehead exploded on the spot. The entire realm of the 3-star giant king was destroyed. Soon after, his body crumbled into powder as if a clay figure falling into the water. He watched his hands and feet turn to powder and then into void. "No, no, what is this?" he shouted in terror. A calm voice floated from the rift. "Divinity transformation forbidden, sage halts. Violate ancient restrictions, Buddha cannot pass." What? This continent forbids divinity transformation to enter. No wonder the nascent soul realm Jiang Fan entered unscathed, while Pingshan Bodhisattva and the misfortune god Steel regarded it as a deadly taboo, not daring to take a step in. The unease he sensed initially wasn't wrong. Jiang Fan had simply tricked him into entering. Understanding everything, the three-star space giant king roared with rage, eyes wide. Pingshan Bodhisattva, you deceived me. You never forgave me. Upon knowing he would come to the continent, Pingshan Bodhisattva hadn't intended to trade, but instead colluded with Jiang Fan to trick him onto the continent, using the taboo to kill him. Pingshan Bodhisattva folded his palms, unfazed. Forgiving you is Buddha's business. I only deliver you to see Buddha. Amitabha. The three-star space giant king was so furious his lungs were bursting, he cursed. I'll kick your ass. You sneaky dead monk, just like Jiang Fan, you sly dead monk. You two bastards. Won't die a good death. Amid the cursed words, the three-star space giant king's entire being dissipated into powder. Even his soul vanished, leaving no trace of light. Jiang Fan wiped the spittle from his face and glared unhappily back at Pingshan Bodhisattva. He cursed you, but the spittle hit me. Pingshan Bodhisattva's youthful face remained indifferent. Amitabha sins. Poor monk never lied before, but since dealing with Master Jiang, everything has changed. Jiang Fan's face darkened further. Damn it, blaming me for your own cunning. However, this time the two of them had indeed coordinated well. Had either of them not cooperated smoothly, things could have fallen apart. Fortunately, in the end, successfully deceived and killed the three-star space giant king without shedding blood. Feeling light-hearted, he thought to himself, the continent's taboo is indeed useful. Didn't spend a copper coin, freeloaded that mysterious woman to act once. Next time, freeload her again? Rip. Suddenly, as Jiang Fan was about to finish thinking, that recovered fissure tore open again. A delicate white jade foot emerged and kicked Jiang Fan hard on the butt. With a bang, he was kicked dozens of miles away, directly from the continent into the sea. With the waves rolling, Jiang Fan emerged from the sea, clutching his butt, and annoyed said, I haven't said anything. You're kicking me again? Last time, when using the continent's restriction to kill a 3 declines assassin from young Emperor Mountain, he got kicked after muttering a phrase. This time he learned to behave, said nothing, merely thought silently, yet was kicked still. Crackle. Responding to Jiang Fan was a bolt of thunderbolt, striking his head hard, leaving him smoking. The clouds in the sky quickly gathered into a line of big letters. Even thinking is not allowed, Jiang Fan whispered fiercely, bullied so many times. If he doesn't get this woman on the ground and whip her 81 times, this score won't be settled. Right when he was thinking this, the space in front of him flickered and a jade wine pot dropped out. Inside, it was filled with greenish liquor. Jiang Fan caught it, slightly stunned. For me, what is this? He opened the wine pot lid, and a wine vapor containing law surged into the sky. Jiang Fan was almost blown away. He quickly closed the lid, and the laws finally stopped overflowing. He was full of surprise. Is this a pot of loin-fused wine? Pingshan Bodhisattva hurried over, feeling the lingering laws in the air. He glanced at the loin-fused wine gourd in Jiang Fan's hand, quickly rolled the Buddha beads in his hand, and murmured rapidly, Amitabha sin. For a monk, the 4 elements are empty, no greed, no jealousy, no envy. The misfortune god Steel also flew over, and Jiang Wuya's surprised voice came. Isn't this senior too kind to his sworn brother? Wine infused with laws has a unique effect for sages who are injured or seek to break through to the next realm. There aren't many bottles like this in all of Central Earth. Jiang Fan was astonished. He understood helping a sage break through, as the laws in the wine could help sages refine their own power of laws and reach a higher level. Unexpectedly, it could also help injured sages heal. If he remembered correctly, the compassionate sage, who entered sage through loopholes, stayed in Central Earth because of his injuries, right? This pot of wine could not be given away for even a drop. I ask both of you to keep this a secret for me. Jiang Fan put away the pot of wine and said solemnly. Pingshan Bodhisattva nodded. Good. Jiang Wuya added. This wine should not be publicized or it will bring endless trouble. Jiang Fan nodded in satisfaction. He looked up at the sky and said, I forgive you this time. 80 lashes remain, and I've noted them down for later. After saying this, he immediately used spatial teleportation to escape to avoid being struck by lightning again. Not long after, the 3 of them returned to the fire worship sect. Looking at the empty fire worship sect, Jiang Fan inquired and learned they had already migrated to the heavenly mechanism pavilion. Where is Yue Fairy? Jiang Fan looked around and found no trace of Yue. Jian Lanjiang said helplessly, She has already left, nowhere to be found. Next to him, Pingshan Bodhisattva silently clasped his hands together and closed his eyes, reciting Buddhist scriptures. Jiang Fan curiously asked, Back then, did you leave monkhood for her because you fell for her, or was it your intention to enter the mundane world to temper your Buddhist heart? Pingshan Bodhisattva closed his eyes and did not answer. Silence is also an answer. Jiang Fan understood it was the latter. He had once wondered why the Dharma Seal Vajra, devoted to the Buddhist path, would fall in love at first sight with a woman. It turned out the Dharma Seal Vajra knew that the ordinary path to prove the Bodhisattva would take too long, and he couldn't succeed before the ancient giant descended. So he took a peculiar path, entering the mundane world first, then cutting off desires. He shook his head and said, "Whether your feelings were true or not, since you were a couple, you owe her an explanation." Pingshan Bodhisattva slowly opened his eyes, no longer avoiding, and said calmly, "Tempering my Buddhist heart is true, and loving her deeply is also true. She feels the same." What does that mean? Could Yue, like the Dharma Seal Vajra, have stepped into the mundane with a purpose? What is Yue's true goal? She is, after all, a remnant soul of an Asura emperor. If she has plans, they won't be small. A slight worry rose in Jiang Fan's heart. However, he should focus on the present. The great wine sacrifice and Asura emperor haven't clashed yet, and this feels like the calm before the storm. The more silent it is, the more terrifying the storm will be when it comes. By the way, where is True Word? Jiang Fan looked around and only then realized True Word Venerable was missing. Heart Demon Venerable, who was sitting near the fire spring, frowned and said, "In the fire spring he should have come out by now." Since True Word Venerable entered, 2 hours have passed, almost half a day. Under the fire spring, unless there's something profound, it shouldn't take this long. Fire spring? Jiang Fan was puzzled and learned the reason True Word Venerable was in the fire spring after inquiring. After a moment of thought, he came to the fire spring. With the fire origin surging within him, clusters of flames parted as if meeting their master. It seemed having the fire origin protected him made it quite safe. "I'll go down to have a look. If I don't come up in 2 hours, then think of a way to rescue me and True Word Venerable." With that, he leapt into the fire spring. As he went deeper, the temperature became more intense the closer he got to the bottom. After 30 minutes, Jiang Fan was deep underground, unsure of the distance. The intense heat here made him feel a prickling pain on his skin, even with the fire origin. He had a bad feeling. True Word Venerable only had the Phoenix Feather 9 Flames fan to go deep here. Even with the second decline of Heavenly Human, it would be hard to bear. At this moment, the narrow and extremely deep shaft suddenly opened up. A 1,000-foot lava lake washed out by magma appeared before his eyes. The rolling magma was extremely hot, and clusters of strange fire flickered in and out amid the magma. Jiang Fan resisted the burning sensation, quickly scanning around but did not find True Word Venerable. The unease in his heart intensified. Since True Word Venerable had not come out, she must still be in the shaft. The only place that could hide her was one spot. His gaze fell on the magma-filled ground, and after a moment of thought, he took out the void fishing rod. He mentally pictured True Word Venerable's appearance and cast the rod. Indeed, the fishhook went directly into the magma and soon hooked onto something. Jiang Fan lifted the rod, trying to pull it out of the magma, but strangely, it wouldn't budge. True Word Venerable was trapped at the bottom of the magma. His expression became concentrated, and he decisively took out the mountain river tripod. The magma here was so intense that ordinary space storage devices would be instantly destroyed, unable to contain it. Only the mountain river tripod could attempt it, to see if it could condense the liquid magma. "Collect!" He slapped the mountain river tripod, urging it on. Instantly, the lava lake rolled and streams of magma, like heavenly dragons absorbing water, surged into the mountain river tripod. As the magma continued to increase, the mountain river tripod also expanded continuously. Not long after, the mountain river tripod grew as large as a mountain, and the lava lake revealed its deep bottom. Taking advantage of the mountain river tripod condensing magma, Jiang Fan quickly jumped to the bottom of the lake and immediately saw True Word Venerable. She sat cross-legged on the dried-up lake bed, her clothes long since burned away, her skin reddened by heat. "True Word," Jiang Fan called out softly, but True Word Venerable's eyes were slightly closed, seemingly in some kind of meditation. In her palm, she held a tattered jade book. The book was embedded with a crimson orb, exuding dazzling brilliance. Waves of terrifying heat emanated from it, scorching the surrounding stone walls and earth, gradually melting them into new magma. Jiang Fan's heart went cold. This orb, could it be? It's the giant emperor's curse eye, also known as the curse sun wheel. Suddenly, a cold voice appeared directly in Jiang Fan's soul. He was startled and looked around quickly. But all around was empty, and he said sharply, "Who might you be? Could there really be something alive in this millennial fire spring? Take a guess." Jiang Fan's thoughts raced, and he blurted out almost without thinking. "Junior, Jiang Fan of the Human Clan, has seen the master of the Jade Paper Heavenly Book.